Tunisia, in North Africa, in the spring of 1943, is not a place where a tank crew expects miracles. The heat sits on the rocky hills like a heavy blanket, and the air shimmers over the stones. On top of a mountain the British call Long Stop Hill, a German crew inside a Panzer IV is watching the valley below. They are calm, almost bored, because the slope beneath them is so steep and broken that no sane tanker would ever try to climb it. A man would struggle to walk up that hillside without using his hands, and a Sherman tank would simply spin its tracks and slide backwards in humiliation. Even the mighty Tiger, the terror of every Allied crew, would strip its gears and cook its clutch if it tried to force a way up. The German commander knows this, and that knowledge makes him feel safe. Up here, with an excellent field of fire and the laws of physics on his side, he feels untouchable. Then he hears a sound that does not fit his mental picture of the battle. At first it is only a distant grinding, the metallic scream of steel teeth chewing rock somewhere far below the ridge. The sound grows louder, closer, angrier, until even inside the armored shell of the Panzer it drills into the men's nerves. The commander lifts his binoculars and looks down, expecting to see a Sherman or maybe a light Stuart struggling on the lower slopes. What he actually sees makes him laugh. Crawling out of the dust like some prehistoric animal is a shape that has no right to be on a modern battlefield. It is boxy and tall, with tiny road wheels buried deep under a long skirt of track that wraps almost completely around the hull. The thing is barely moving, creeping forward at the pace of an old man with a bad leg. To the German crew it looks less like a weapon and more like an agricultural tractor that has somehow gotten lost in a war. They open fire. 75mm shells scream down from the ridge, slamming into the strange British tank's front armor. Each hit throws up a flash and a cloud of dust. But when the smoke clears, the tank is still there, still grinding its way upward. The shells are bouncing, gouging steel and stripping paint, but they are not going through. Slowly, almost casually, the ugly machine continues to climb. Its tracks claw into the rock at an angle that makes the Germans' stomachs tighten just from looking at it. The tank's nose points at the sky, its engine howls, and yet it keeps dragging itself higher, rock by rock, like a steel mountain goat. The laughter inside the Panzer turret dies away, because this is not just a ridiculous-looking tank anymore. This is something that should not be able to exist, doing something that should not be possible. That clumsy shape is a Churchill, and on that day in Tunisia, the German army begins to understand a brutal truth. They built tanks for speed and long-range duels. The British built a monster that could go where no other machine on Earth could follow. This is not the story of the fastest tank of the Second World War, and it is not the story of the biggest gun on the battlefield. This is the story of the relic that refused to die. The tank that was born a failure, disgraced in its first battle, and yet somehow became the steel bulldog that would hunt tigers in their own lairs. To understand how such a strange beast ever came to exist, we have to go back to a moment of pure British panic. In May of 1940, the British Army had just been kicked off the continent at Dunkirk. Hundreds of tanks and thousands of vehicles were left burning or abandoned on French roads and beaches. Britain suddenly found itself almost naked in the face of a possible German invasion. The government needed tanks, and it needed them yesterday. There was no time for elegant design studies or patient testing. A desperate order went out to Vauxhall Motors, a company whose main experience was building family cars and delivery trucks. The instructions they received from the War Office already belonged to another war. Many senior officers were still thinking in the language of trenches, shell craters, and barbed wire from 1918. They told the engineers, in effect, speed is optional. The ability to cross ditches, torn-up ground, and deep mud is everything. They did not ask for a fast cruiser that could race around enemy flanks. They asked for a rolling fortress that could crawl over the wreckage of the last war. So the engineers reached back into the past. They sketched a tank with tiny wheels hidden under long side skirts, and with tracks that wrapped high up around the hull so it could lever itself out of trenches. The prototype that rolled out after only a few frantic weeks of work did not look like a weapon from the age of Panthers and T-34s. It looked like a cousin of the lumbering British tanks that had first appeared on the Somme. Its official name at the factory was A-22, but soon it would carry a far heavier label, Churchill, after the new Prime Minister himself. On paper, the idea had some logic. The armor was thick for its time, a solid wall of steel meant to shrug off the short-barreled guns still common in the German Panzer force. But the main gun in the turret was a tiny 2-pounder that could punch holes in light armor, yet struggled badly against the heavier Panzer III and Panzer IV. Even worse than the gun was the heart beating inside the hull. Britain simply did not have a ready-made tank engine powerful enough to move this new heavy infantry tank. Aircraft engines existed, but the Air Force guarded them like treasure and refused to share. So the designers at Vauxhall made a desperate choice. They went to the truck division and pulled a standard Bedford 6-cylinder engine off the line, an honest little unit that produced around 170 horsepower in a lorry. For a tank, that was hopelessly weak. Their solution was pure Frankenstein. They took 2 of those truck engines, bolted them together side by side, and created an improvised flat 12, the Bedford Twin 6. On the test bench, it made more power, but it also produced new problems, with vibration, heat, and oil flow that nobody truly had time to solve. The cooling system had been designed for a truck racing along a road with cool air rushing past the radiator, not for a tank crawling at walking speed through sticky mud. When the first Churchills drove under their own power, crews quickly learned what that meant. Engines overheated so badly that the floor plates inside the driver's compartment grew almost too hot to stand on. Oil leaked, seals blew, and gearbox components sheared under the stress of moving so much armor with so little power. In some early trials, a Churchill could barely manage 4 miles before grinding to a shuddering halt. Tankers joked grimly about placing bets on whether they would reach the firing range or burst into flames on the way there. Yet Britain was desperate, and desperation rarely waits for perfection. Despite all the technical warnings, the Churchill went into mass production. Hundreds of these flawed machines rolled out to units that had little choice but to accept them. Very soon, the new tank would be thrown into a battle that would almost kill its reputation forever. On the 19th of August, 1942, the Allies launched a large raid on the French port of Dieppe. The plan was to test German defenses and gain experience for a future full-scale invasion. The heavy stars of this rehearsal were 29 Churchill tanks of the Calgary Regiment. They were supposed to storm ashore, crush obstacles under their tracks, and act as moving bunkers for the Canadian infantry. It went wrong almost immediately. The beach at Dieppe was not fine sand, but a thick layer of smooth, rounded stones known as chert. As the Churchills rumbled off their landing craft, their heavy tracks dug into the loose surface and began to sink. The stones rolled like ball bearings under the steel, spinning the tracks in place and dragging the tanks down by the nose. Some Churchills bogged so deeply that their bellies scraped the rocks. Others became high-centered. Almost all of them lost precious minutes, struggling just to move a few yards. Above them, German guns on the cliffs stared down at a perfect shooting gallery. Anti-tank guns and artillery opened up, hammering the stranded British tanks and the exposed infantry around them. And yet, in this catastrophe, the first hint of the Churchills' strange strength appeared. Shell after shell smashed into the tanks, taking out tracks, jamming turrets, and destroying guns. But many of the crews did not die. Inside their thick armor boxes, they survived blows that would have turned a faster, thinner-skinned machine into a funeral pyre. For hours, some of the crippled Churchills acted as immovable steel pillboxes on the beach. They fired their machine guns until the ammunition ran dry, providing the only real cover for shattered infantry units pinned against the sea. When the order finally came to retreat, most of those tanks were abandoned where they lay. Of the 29 Churchills that landed, 27 were lost. The Germans photographed themselves standing on the wrecks, laughing at the crude, riveted armor and strange shape of the British heavy tank. Their reports dismissed it as obsolete, slow, and poorly armed. Back in Britain, the reaction was icy rage. Critics in the army and in Parliament demanded that the Churchill program be scrapped immediately. The new American Sherman was arriving, and compared to the lumbering A-22, it looked sleek and modern. The Sherman was faster, more reliable, and easier to ship and maintain. Many officers argued that Britain should simply abandon the Churchill and standardize on the American design. For a brief moment, the fate of the tank seemed sealed. But there was one man who was not prepared to let a machine bearing his name die so easily. Winston Churchill looked very carefully at the reports from Dieppe. He saw the horrible casualties among the infantry, and he saw the shocking number of tanks knocked out. Yet he also saw a line item that others had ignored. The crews inside the Churchills had survived in far higher numbers than expected. The thick armor, clumsy and heavy as it was, had done exactly what it was supposed to do. The tank had failed as a mobile weapon, but succeeded as a shield. Churchill argued that the battles still to come, in North Africa, in Italy, and eventually in Germany itself, would include mountains, bad weather, and fortifications where slow but tough machines might be priceless. He forced the army to give the design one last chance. A small experimental unit named King Force was created, built around 6 improved Churchill Mach 3 tanks. Engineers worked frantically to strengthen the transmission, adjust the cooling systems, and replace the old 2-pounder with a harder-hitting 6-pounder gun. These upgraded heavies were then shipped to North Africa in time for the Battle of El Alamein. In the rough ground and wadis of the desert, something unexpected happened. Shermans and Crusaders, with their narrower tracks, struggled in deep sand and on broken rocks. The Churchill, with its long track run and unusual suspension, actually coped better than its faster cousins.
crews began to realize that this ugly machine could grind forward through fields and gullies that other tanks had to avoid. The real test came in the rocky hills where our story began. Lieutenant Gudgeon and other Churchill commanders found themselves facing the nightmare shape of the Tiger,
the German heavy tank armed with the fearsome 88mm gun. In one famous engagement near a hill known as Jebel Jaffa, a Churchill troop blundered into the sights of Tiger No. 131. A single shot from the Tiger tore through the first Churchill's armor and forced the crew to bail out, stunned but alive. Yet the remaining Churchills did not flee. Using the broken ground as cover, they crawled up the slopes, refusing to present an easy long-range target. One managed to get close enough to fire into the Tiger's turret ring, jamming the traverse. Suddenly, the mighty German heavy could not turn its gun. Facing slow, armored beasts that kept crawling closer no matter how the rocks and mud tried to stop them, the Tiger's crew lost their nerve. They abandoned their nearly intact tank and ran. When British troops reached the hulking German machine, they found it still largely functional. Tiger 131 became the first running Tiger captured by Western Allies, a priceless intelligence prize that would later star in museum displays and even in films. And it had not been trapped by a fast cruiser or a specialized tank destroyer. It had been cornered by the supposed relic of Dieppe, the Churchill. While British crews were beginning to respect their odd vehicle, another set of tankers far to the east were forming their own harsh opinion. As part of Lend-Lease, Britain sent several hundred Churchills to the Soviet Union in 1942. The Red Army tankers who unloaded them in the Arctic ports were used to the T-34, a sleek, sloped machine with wide tracks and a powerful diesel engine. To those men, the tall, slab-sided Churchill looked like a step backwards. They saw narrow tracks that threatened to sink into deep snow, complicated mechanical systems that would hate the Russian winter, and an underpowered engine that drank precious fuel. They gave the British tank a black-humored nickname, the Grave for Five Brothers. In the brutal cold, some of the early Churchills did struggle. Hydraulic fluids thickened, engines coughed, and the heavy hulls bogged in deep drifts. But when fighting moved into towns and close-range ambushes, a different picture emerged. At Kursk and in other savage battles, Soviet reports noted how often T-34s brewed up when hit at short distances by German guns. Their medium armor and diesel fuel could not always save them from catastrophic fires. The Churchill, slow and clumsy as it was, took punishment that would have killed a lighter vehicle and still kept its crew alive. One Soviet assessment from a Guards tank unit summed it up bluntly. The English tank is slow and ugly, but the crew survives, and a surviving crew can fight again tomorrow. By 1944, some Soviet heavy units specifically requested Churchills for brutal street fighting, where surviving the first hit mattered more than getting to the battle quickly. Back in Britain, meanwhile, engineers and one very imaginative general were about to turn the Churchill from a mere tank into a whole circus of bizarre armored machines. General Percy Hobart, famously eccentric and brilliantly practical, was given the job of solving a terrible problem. The Allies were planning to land in Normandy, and the German Atlantic Wall was lined with bunkers, gun positions, minefields, and tank traps. Standard Shermans and Cromwells could not simply drive up to those defenses and shoot them apart. They would be blown to pieces long before they got close enough. Hobart needed specialized engineering tanks, vehicles that could lay bridges, clear mines, smash concrete, and do a dozen other suicidal jobs. For that role, the stable, heavy Churchill chassis was perfect. It did not need to be fast. It needed to be strong and capable of carrying ridiculous equipment without tipping over. So Hobart's division began modifying Churchills into what the troops would soon call Hobart's Funnies. One Churchill variant became the ARK, a tank with no turret at all, just folding ramps along its top. It would drive into a ditch or up to a wall, lower its ramps, and literally become a living bridge for other vehicles. Another carried a giant spool of reinforced canvas on its nose, the bobbin, able to unroll a temporary road over soft sand or mud so that following units did not bog down. The most brutal of the engineering conversions was the AVRE, the Armored Vehicle Royal Engineers. In this version, the normal gun was removed and replaced with a stubby 290mm mortar called the petard. Its ammunition was a huge, squat demolition bomb nicknamed the Flying Dustbin because it looked like a metal trash can. The range was pitiful, only about 80 yards, which meant the crew had to drive almost up to the enemy bunker's doorstep before firing. But when the Flying Dustbin hit, the effect was biblical. The massive charge could shatter thick reinforced concrete, collapsing bunkers and blasting open tank obstacles with a single shot. What no field gun could do from a mile away, a Churchill AVRE could accomplish at spitting distance. Even that, however, was not the most feared Churchill of the war. That title belonged to a variant that turned the tank into a walking flame storm, the Churchill Crocodile. From the front, a Crocodile looked like any other Churchill with a normal 75mm gun. Enemy troops who had not been briefed often did not recognize the danger immediately. The secret was behind the tank, in a heavy armored trailer trundling along on two small wheels. Inside that trailer were roughly 400 gallons of thickened fuel and several large cylinders of compressed nitrogen gas. A protected pipe ran from the trailer under the tank, up through the hull, and out through a projector mounted where the Hull machine gun used to sit. When the commander pressed his trigger, the gas pressurized the fuel to enormous pressure and hurled a jet of burning liquid out to a range of 100 yards or more. The engineering was terrifyingly elegant. The fuel mixture was sticky, clinging to anything it touched. The projector could fire short bursts or long streams, allowing the crew to rake trenches, bunker embrasures, and even the sides of buildings. Crocodile crews developed a chilling tactic they called wet and hot shots. First, they would fire unlit fuel, a wet shot, splashing the outside of a bunker or trench with gallons of the thick liquid. The smell alone was enough to send a wave of dread through the men inside, who knew exactly what was about to happen. Then, after a pause heavy with fear, the commander would send a single hot shot, igniting the fuel already clinging to concrete and uniforms. The resulting firestorm could suck the oxygen out of a position as surely as it burned it. It was so horrifying that in some battles, German defenders surrendered as soon as they saw a Crocodile's trailer appear on the road. At the fortress of Brest, and in other stubborn strongpoints, entire garrisons laid down their arms after just one demonstration burst against an outer wall. The price of wielding such a weapon was high. Crocodile crews knew that if their trailer was hit and the fuel exploded, their tank could become a crematorium. Enemy soldiers were often ordered to give no quarter to captured flamethrower operators, yet many Churchill men quietly preferred this assignment because if the enemy surrendered early, fewer of their own infantry would die storming those bunkers by hand. While crocodiles and AVREs smashed fortifications in France, standard gun-armed Churchills were fighting their own brutal war in Italy. The campaign up the Italian peninsula was defined by rivers, steep hills, mud, and carefully prepared German defensive lines. This was perhaps the worst possible place for fast, lightly armored tanks designed for the open plains. Shermans and other mediums struggled on narrow mountain tracks. They slipped off icy roads or bogged down in deep mud, their weight concentrated on relatively narrow tracks. The Churchills, on the other hand, with their low center of gravity and sprawling track length, could grind up slopes that seemed designed for mules rather than machines. In the fighting along the Gothic line, there are photos of Churchills perched on ridges and peaks that look almost impossible. Crews would nose their tanks up precarious paths, their engines howling in low gear, while sappers chopped away rock and trees ahead of them. German defenders, who had confidently placed guns to sweep the valleys, suddenly found British heavies smashing through walls behind them. But even Italy was not the final demonstration of what the Churchill could do when the ground turned against everyone. That came in February of 1945, in the dark, flooded woods of the Reichswald on the German border. Operation Veritable was supposed to be a hammer blow into the German defenses on the Lower Rhine. Then the rain arrived and turned much of the forest into a swamp. Mud lay 3 feet deep in many clearings, and most of the tracks marked on the maps dissolved into chocolate-colored rivers. Montgomery and his staff looked at the conditions and realized that conventional armor would be nearly useless. So they did something audacious. They gathered roughly 500 Churchills, the largest concentration of heavy infantry tanks ever assembled. German planners had assumed that no vehicles could cross the soaked fields and forest floors, so they mined and fortified the roads while leaving much of the boggy ground comparatively bare. When the attack began, the Churchills ignored the roads altogether. They plunged straight into the mud. The wide track run and immense torque of their gearing allowed them to plow through sludge that swallowed men to the waist. Slowly, almost painfully, they pushed forward, dragging themselves between trees and over ditches that would have swallowed a lighter tank to its turret ring. German soldiers later spoke of ghost tanks appearing out of the mist in places where no tracked vehicle should ever have been able to operate. In the Reichswald, the Churchill did not just fight German armor, it fought the earth itself and won. The same slow, clumsy qualities that had seemed like unforgivable flaws on the pebbles of Dieppe became decisive strengths in the mud of Germany. By the end of the European War, the Churchill had done something very few designs could claim. It had served, in one form or another, from the desperate early days after Dunkirk all the way to the final offensives on German soil. And still its story was not over. 5 years later, the world slid into another brutal conflict, this time on the mountains and rice fields of Korea. In 1950, North Korean forces, supported by the Soviet Union, invaded the South with columns of T-34-85s. On paper, these were far superior to the aging British heavies left in inventory. The T-34 was faster, carried a powerful 85mm gun, and represented a newer generation of design. Yet when British units deployed to Korea, they brought Churchill tanks with them, including some crocodiles. Once again, landscape and tactics changed the rules. In narrow valleys and on steep ridges, sheer mobility over bad ground mattered more than raw top speed on a flat road.
Reports from battles like the Emden River mention Churchill crews holding key positions under terrifying pressure. In one often told story, a Churchill Crocodile found itself swarmed by enemy infantry who tried to climb onto the hull and pry open the hatches. Instead of panicking, the commander calmly rotated the turret and fired the flamethrower in a circle around his own tank. The thick armor shielded the crew from most of the heat and splash, while the attackers around the hull were driven away in an instant wall of fire. Korea would be the Churchill's last war. By the early 1950s, newer designs, especially the emerging Centurion main battle tank, finally pushed the old infantry heavy into retirement. Before the curtain falls completely, though,
there is one more chapter worth telling, a glimpse of the monster the Churchill might have become. British engineers knew very well that even with all its courage, the standard Churchill was outgunned by the latest German heavies. The 6-pounder and 75mm guns struggled badly against the thick frontal armor of Panthers and King Tigers. The obvious solution was to mount the superb 17-pounder anti-tank gun on the Churchill chassis. But there was a problem. The turret ring of the existing tank was too small to take such a massive weapon and its recoil system. So designers sketched a heavily enlarged Churchill, wider and heavier, with a new turret big enough for the gun. The result was the A-43, known as the Black Prince. It had armor thicker than a Tiger I and a gun capable of killing any German tank from respectable distances. On paper, it was a King Tiger killer wearing a British uniform. Unfortunately, in one crucial respect, it was still a Churchill. It used essentially the same underpowered engine. Trying to push a 50-ton Black Prince with the same 350 horsepower that had already struggled in lighter marks produced a cruel joke. The prototype's top speed on a good road was barely more than 11 miles an hour, and off-road it crawled so slowly that walking infantry could keep up without breaking a sweat. By the time the Black Prince was ready to be tested, the war in Europe was ending. The British Army, looking ahead, chose instead to invest in the far more modern Centurion, which combined mobility, armor, and firepower in a balanced package. Only a handful of Black Prince prototypes were ever built, and the line ended there. So what, in the end, is the verdict on the Churchill? On a simple comparison chart, it loses many battles. It was slower than almost every contemporary medium tank. Its early reliability was awful, and its gun was often outmatched by newer enemy armor. Yet wars are not decided by numbers on trading cards. They are decided by whether a machine can do the nasty, specific jobs history demands of it. And in that harsher court, the Churchill stands taller than its awkward silhouette suggests. It was the tank that stood on pebble beaches and refused to burn long enough to shelter broken infantry at Dieppe. It was the tank that clawed its way up Tunisian rocks to stare down tigers on their own high ground. It was the tank that became a bridge, a bunker buster, and a rolling dragon breathing fire across the Atlantic wall. It was the tank that climbed Italian mule tracks and dragged itself through German swamp forests when every other vehicle had surrendered to the mud. It was the tank that, 5 years after Hitler died, was still holding lines on distant Korean hills against a new generation of Soviet steel. Veterans who served in both Shermans and Churchills often put it in simple human terms. The Sherman, they said, was like a racing car, fast, responsive, even fun, until the exact moment it hit a wall. The Churchill was a bulldog. It was not pretty, it was not quick, but once it bit into a position or a hill, It simply would not let go. The Churchill arrived in the Second World War looking like a relic from the last one. Some people tried to cancel it, bury it, and forget it. Instead, through a mixture of stubborn engineering, brutal battlefield lessons, and raw necessity, it turned into something unique. It became the relic that refused to die. And that is why, even in a world that worships sleek panthers and legendary tigers, the Churchill deserves its own place in the front row of history's armored giants. As you leave this story, imagine one last scene. On a cold museum floor somewhere, a tiger and a Churchill sit quietly side by side. One is famous for fear. The other is remembered by the men whose lives it actually saved. If you want to know how the British finally answered the big cats with their own killer gun, there is another chapter waiting. The story of the Firefly, the ordinary Sherman that learned how to blow a king tiger's turret sky high. Click into that story next, or step sideways and see how the mighty king tiger really compares to this stubborn British bulldog. Either way, the War of Steel is far from over, and there are many more beasts waiting in the dark. Opening the duel at the cathedral. March 6, 1945, 10:30 in the morning, Cologne, Germany. The city center near the cathedral. American tank commander Sergeant Early Rowland sits in his M26 Pershing heavy tank. The tank is named Eagle 7. It's one of 20 Pershings in Europe, the first American heavy tanks to reach combat. Rowland and his crew arrived in Germany 3 weeks ago. They've been waiting for this moment. Rowland looks through his periscope. The street ahead is narrow, destroyed buildings on both sides, rubble everywhere. The cathedral looms behind them, its twin spires somehow still standing despite months of bombing. The city is mostly captured, but German resistance continues, snipers, Panzerfausts, and somewhere, German armor. Rowland's radio crackles. Eagle 7, intelligence reports Panther tank in your sector. Proceed with caution. Engage on sight. Rowland acknowledges. His gunner, Corporal Clarence Smoyer, already has his hand on the firing controls. The loader, Private John DeRiggi, checks the 90mm shells. Ready. The driver, Technician 5th grade William McVeigh, shifts gears. The Pershing moves forward, slowly, carefully. This is what the Pershing was designed for, fighting German heavy tanks, Panthers, Tigers. The Sherman couldn't do this effectively. Sherman guns bounced off German armor. Sherman crews died. The Pershing was supposed to change this. 90mm gun, 102mm frontal armor. Finally, an American tank that could fight German heavies on equal terms. But the Pershing arrived late, very late. The war is almost over. Germany is collapsing. Most German armor is destroyed or abandoned. The Pershings rushed to Europe in January. Only 20 made it before Germany's final collapse. Rowland's Eagle 7 is one of them. The Pershing turns a corner. Rowland sees it immediately. A German Panther, 500 meters ahead. Hull down position. Only the turret visible. The Panther's long 75mm gun aims directly at them. Rowland shouts, "Panther, front! 500! Smoyer sees it, centers the crosshairs, but the Panther fires first. The shell crosses the distance in under a second, hits the Pershing's frontal armor. The impact is massive, violent. The crew is thrown forward, but the armor holds, no penetration. The 102mm armor stops the Panther's shell. This is what the Pershing was built for. Smoyer recovers, aims. The 90mm gun centers on the Panther's turret. Range, 480 meters. Smoyer fires. The Pershing recoils. The shell hits the Panther's turret front, penetrates. The Panther explodes. Catastrophic ammunition detonation. The turret lifts off the hull. Smoke pours from the wreck. The entire engagement lasts 12 seconds, and it's filmed. A cameraman from the Signal Corps is following Roland's platoon. He captures everything. The Panther firing, the Pershing taking the hit, the Pershing returning fire, the Panther exploding. This footage will become famous. The duel at the cathedral. The Pershing proving it can fight German heavy tanks. But Roland doesn't celebrate. He knows the truth. The war is almost over. Germany will surrender in 2 months. The Pershings arrived too late to matter. Too late to change the outcome. Too late to save the thousands of Sherman crews who died fighting Panthers and Tigers with inadequate guns. This is the Pershing's war. A few dramatic victories, but strategically irrelevant. The right tank, the wrong time. The weapon that proves, sometimes, being late is the same as being useless. This is the story of the M26 Pershing, the tank America needed in 1943, but didn't deploy until 1945. The weapon that Army leadership opposed for 2 years. The machine that arrived after the Sherman already won the war. The tank that got a second chance in Korea.
And failed again, for different reasons. Welcome to Iron Witness. Part 1. Origins, the political battle. Chapter 1. The Shermans' inadequacy. Let's go back to 1942. America is at war. Tank production is ramping up. The Sherman is America's primary medium tank. And American military leadership believes the Sherman is adequate, good enough to win the war. But some officers disagree. They see reports from North Africa, British tanks facing German Panzer IVs and Tigers. British tanks are outgunned, out-armored. The Germans have superior firepower. If American tanks face German heavy tanks, the Shermans will suffer the same fate. Lieutenant General Leslie McNair is the commander of Army Ground Forces. He's responsible for training and equipping the Army. McNair has strong opinions about tanks. He believes tanks should not fight tanks. That's the job of tank destroyers. Tanks should support infantry, exploit breakthroughs. Tank destroyers will handle enemy armor. This doctrine shapes American tank development. The Sherman is designed as an infantry support vehicle, not a tank killer. It has adequate armor against infantry weapons, a gun that can destroy bunkers and light vehicles, speed and reliability for exploitation operations. But it's not designed to duel German heavy tanks. Some officers protest. Brigadier General Alvin Gillum, Colonel James Chibber.
They argue America needs a heavy tank, a tank with heavier armor, a more powerful gun, a tank that can fight Panthers and Tigers. McNair refuses. He argues heavy tanks are unnecessary, too slow, too expensive. Tank destroyers will handle German armor. The Sherman is good enough. America's advantage is numbers. Build more Shermans. Overwhelm German forces with quantity. Superior tanks aren't needed. The debate continues through 1942 and early 1943, but McNair has the authority. He blocks heavy tank development. The Ordnance Department proposes several designs: the T-20, the T-23, the T-25. All are rejected. McNair insists, no heavy tanks, focus on Sherman production. Then reports from Tunisia arrive. February 1943, the Battle of Kasserine Pass. American forces encounter German Tigers for the first time. The results are devastating. Sherman's 75mm guns cannot penetrate Tiger frontal armor. Tiger 88mm guns destroy Shermans at ranges beyond 2,000 meters. American tank crews are helpless. After-action reports are alarming. American tankers describe Tigers as invincible. Sherman shells bounce off. Multiple hits don't stop Tigers. But one Tiger hit kills a Sherman. The morale impact is severe. American crews fear German heavy tanks. McNair reviews the reports, but his position doesn't change. He argues Kasserine was a tactical failure, poor deployment, inadequate training. The solution isn't better tanks, it's better tactics, better training. The Sherman is still good enough, but pressure is building. Field commanders want better tanks. Tank destroyer doctrine is questioned. Tank destroyers are effective against medium tanks, but against Tigers, they suffer the same problems as Shermans. Thin armor, inadequate guns. Tank destroyers can't reliably kill Tigers either. The Ordnance Department continues pushing for heavy tank development. They propose the T-26. This design has a 90mm gun, 102mm frontal armor. Weight, approximately 46 tons. It can fight Tigers and Panthers on more equal terms. McNair reviews the T-26 proposal. He remains opposed. His arguments are consistent. Heavy tanks are too slow for exploitation operations, too expensive. Production would divert resources from Sherman manufacturing. America's advantage is quantity, not quality. The T-26 is rejected. Again. This pattern continues through 1943. The Ordnance Department proposes, McNair rejects. Meanwhile, Sherman losses mount. North Africa, Sicily, Italy. Shermans fight German armor. Shermans lose. Crew casualties increase, but the doctrine doesn't change. Shermans are good enough. Tank destroyers will handle heavy armor. No heavy tanks needed. Chapter 2. The Battle of the Bulge changes everything. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes Forest. Germany launches Operation Wacht am Rhein, the Battle of the Bulge. German forces include over 150 King Tigers and hundreds of Panthers.
American forces are surprised, outnumbered, outgunned. Sherman tanks face King Tigers and Panthers at close range in the Ardennes forests. The results are predictable. Sherman's 75mm guns cannot penetrate frontally. German guns destroy Shermans easily. American tank losses are heavy, very heavy. Reports reach Washington. The Battle of the Bulge exposes American tank inadequacy dramatically. Shermans are hopelessly outclassed by German heavy armor. The 76mm Sherman, introduced in 1944, is marginally better, but still inadequate against King Tigers. American tankers are dying because American tanks cannot fight German heavy tanks effectively. The political situation changes. McNair was killed in July 1944 by American bombs during Operation Cobra. His replacement, Lieutenant General Ben Lear, is more open to heavy tank development. The Battle of the Bulge provides the justification. America needs a heavy tank. Immediately. December 22, 1944. The War Department approves the T-26 for production. The tank is redesignated M-26, named Pershing after General John Pershing, commander of American forces in World War I. Production begins immediately at the Detroit Arsenal and Fisher Tank Arsenal, but production takes time. The first M-26 rolls off the assembly line in November 1944, but that's a prototype.
Full production doesn't begin until December. By January 1945, only a few dozen Pershings are completed. The war is almost over. American leadership realizes the Pershings won't arrive in time to affect the war significantly. But they order deployment anyway, partially for morale. Show American tankers they're getting better equipment. Partially for testing. Combat data will inform future tank development. And partially for prestige. America wants to prove it can build tanks comparable to German heavy tanks. January 1945. Operation Zebra mission. 20 M-26 Pershings are rushed to Europe. They're loaded onto ships, transported across the Atlantic, rushed through France to Germany. The entire process takes approximately 1 month. The Pershings arrive at the front in late January and early February 1945. 20 tanks, out of thousands of American tanks in Europe. The Pershings are a token force, strategically insignificant, but symbolically important. America finally has a heavy tank, finally has a weapon that can fight German heavy armor on equal terms. But 3 years too late. Chapter 3. The Pershing Design. Let's examine what American engineers created. The M-26 Pershing, America's first heavy tank. Or is it? The classification is debated. The Army initially classifies it as a heavy tank, but post-war, it's reclassified as a medium tank. Why? Because by 1945 standards, 46 tons is medium, not heavy. The King Tiger weighs 70 tons, the IS-2 weighs 46 tons, and the Soviets call it heavy. But American doctrine is different. Classification debates aside, what matters is capability, weight. 41.7 tons in combat configuration. Some sources say 46 tons. The discrepancy depends on ammunition, fuel, and equipment load. Either way, significantly heavier than the Sherman at 33 tons. Armor. Frontal hull, 102 millimeters at 46 degrees. This provides effective thickness of approximately 140 to 150 millimeters. Impenetrable to most German guns at medium range. Turret front. 114 millimeters. Thicker than the hull. The Pershing's armor can withstand German 75 millimeter Panther guns at medium range. German 88 millimeter Tiger guns at long range, but not at close range. The King Tiger's 88 millimeter long gun can penetrate Pershing frontal armor at ranges under 1,000 meters. Gun 90 millimeter M3. This is a significant upgrade from the Sherman's 75 millimeter or 76 millimeter guns. The 90 millimeter can penetrate 120 millimeters of armor at 1,000 meters. 148 millimeters at 500 meters. This gun can penetrate Panther frontal armor at medium range, Tiger frontal armor at close range, King Tiger from the side or rear. The Pershing finally gives American tankers a gun that can fight German heavy tanks. Engine. Ford GAF V8 gasoline engine, 500 horsepower. This is the critical problem. The Pershing weighs 46 tons. The engine produces 500 horsepower. Power to weight ratio. Approximately 11 horsepower per ton. This is low, very low. The Sherman has 15 horsepower per ton. The Panther has 16 horsepower per ton. The Pershing is underpowered. Mobility is compromised. Maximum speed. 40 kilometers per hour on roads. 8 kilometers per hour cross-country. The Pershing is slow, especially on rough terrain. Transmission. Torque-matic transmission. 3 forward gears, 1 reverse. This transmission is borrowed from the Sherman. It's designed for a 33-ton tank. The Pershing weighs 46 tons. The transmission is overloaded. Reliability suffers. The Pershing frequently experiences transmission problems. Overheating. Gear failures. This will become a major issue in Korea. Suspension. Torsion bar suspension. Horizontal volute spring suspension on early models. Later models use torsion bars. Better ride quality. Better weight distribution. The Pershing's suspension is adequate, not exceptional, but better than the Sherman's. Ammunition capacity. 70 rounds of 90 millimeter. This is adequate for sustained combat, more than the Tiger's 92 rounds of 88 millimeter, less than the Sherman's 90 rounds of 75 millimeter. Ammunition storage is improved. Wet storage reduces fire risk. The Pershing is less likely to burn catastrophically than early Shermans. Crew. 5 men. Commander, gunner, loader, driver, assistant driver/bow machine gunner. Standard configuration for American tanks. The Pershing is a capable tank. Not exceptional, but capable. It addresses the Sherman's primary weaknesses. Better armor, better gun. But it introduces new problems. Underpowered engine, overloaded transmission, and, most critically, it arrives too late. By February 1945, the war is almost over. The Pershing will see limited combat in Europe. Its real test will come 5 years later in Korea, under very different conditions. Part 2. World War II.
Too little, too late. Chapter 4. Arrival in Europe. February 1945. 20 M26 Pershings arrive in Belgium. They're assigned to the 3rd Armored Division and the 9th Armored Division. The crews are excited. Finally, a tank that can fight German heavy armor. Finally, a weapon that gives them a fighting chance. But the Pershings arrive with problems. First, training. The crews have minimal time to familiarize themselves with the new tanks. A few days at most. The Pershing is different from the Sherman. Heavier, different controls, different gun. The crews need time to adapt. They don't get it. The front is moving. German resistance is collapsing.
The Pershings must deploy immediately. Second, maintenance. The Pershings are new. Spare parts are scarce. Maintenance manuals are incomplete. The crews and mechanics don't fully understand the tank's systems. When problems occur, and they will, fixing them is difficult. Third, logistics. The Pershings consume fuel voraciously. The underpowered engine runs at high RPM constantly. Fuel consumption is higher than Shermans. Fuel trucks must prioritize Pershings. But the logistics system is optimized for Shermans. Integrating Pershings into the supply chain is complicated. Despite these problems, the Pershings deploy. February 25, 1945. The 3rd Armored Division crosses the Rohr River. Several Pershings participate. This is their first combat. The crews are nervous, excited. The Pershings advance. German resistance is scattered. Panzerfausts, anti-tank guns, but no German heavy tanks. Not yet. Then, disaster. One Pershing, nicknamed Fireball, advances too far ahead of supporting infantry. German forces ambush it. A Tiger tank fires from a concealed position. Range 300 meters. The shell hits Fireball on the frontal armor. Penetrates. The Pershing explodes. Total loss. 3 crew members killed, 2 wounded. This is the Pershing's first combat loss, and it's symbolic. The tank designed to fight tigers is destroyed by a tiger on its first day in combat. The crew advanced without proper support. The ambush was preventable, but the loss is demoralizing. The Pershing isn't invincible. It can be destroyed, just like the Sherman. The other Pershings continue advancing. Over the next week, they engage German forces regularly. Anti-tank guns, Panzerfausts, a few Panthers. The Pershings perform adequately. The 90mm gun is effective. Armor protection is good. But mobility is a problem. The Pershings struggle on muddy roads. The underpowered engine strains. Several Pershings experience transmission problems. They're repaired in the field. But the pattern is concerning. Mechanical reliability is worse than Sherman's. Chapter 5. The Remagen Bridge. March 7, 1945, Remagen, Germany. The 9th Armored Division discovers the Ludendorff Bridge over the Rhine River. It's intact. German forces failed to destroy it. This is a strategic prize. The Rhine is Germany's last natural barrier. If American forces capture the bridge, they can pour troops into Germany's heartland. The war will end within weeks. 4 M26 Pershings from the 9th Armored Division participate in the bridge capture. They provide fire support for infantry. suppress German defensive positions. The Pershing's 90mm guns destroy bunkers, machine gun nests. German resistance is fierce but disorganized. By afternoon, American forces control the bridge. But the Germans counterattack. Hitler is furious. He orders the bridge destroyed. German forces mass artillery, bombing raids, and several King Tigers are rushed to Remagen. Their mission? Destroy the bridge, or prevent American forces from expanding the bridgehead. The Pershings defend the eastern approach. March 8th, German King Tigers attack. 4 King Tigers engage American forces. The Pershings return fire. Range, 1,000 meters. Too far for effective penetration. The Pershing's 90mm gun can penetrate King Tiger's side armor at this range, but not frontal armor. The King Tigers have 180 millimeters of frontal armor, sloped. Effectively, over 250 millimeters. The Pershings hit King Tigers multiple times. Most shells bounce off. A few penetrate the turret. 1 King Tiger is damaged, retreats. But the King Tigers return fire. Their 88mm long guns can penetrate Pershing frontal armor at 1,000 meters. 1 Pershing is hit. The shell penetrates the lower frontal plate. Engine damage. The crew evacuates. The Pershing is recovered later, but it's out of action for days. The battle demonstrates the Pershing's limitations. It can fight King Tigers, but not dominate them. At long range, the Pershing's gun struggles against King Tiger frontal armor. The Pershing must get closer, or flank. But the King Tiger can penetrate the Pershing frontally at long range. It's not an even match. The King Tiger is still superior, but the King Tigers can't destroy the bridge. American artillery and air power are overwhelming. German forces are outnumbered. By March 10th, the bridgehead is secure. American forces pour across. The Rhine barrier is broken. Germany's defeat is inevitable. The Pershings participated, but they didn't change the outcome. The bridge was captured by infantry and Shermans. The Pershings provided fire support, but they weren't decisive. Once again, the Pershing arrives too late to matter. Chapter 6. The Cathedral Duel. March 6, 1945, Cologne, Germany. The day before Remagen. Sergeant Early Rowland's Eagle 7 advances through the city center. American forces are clearing German resistance, street by street, building by building. The fighting is brutal. Close range, urban warfare. Rowland's platoon includes 3 Pershings. They're providing fire support for infantry. The cathedral is a landmark, a navigation point. Rowland's tank passes near it. Then he sees the Panther, 500 meters ahead. Hull down, only the turret visible. The Panther fires. The shell hits Eagle 7 on the frontal armor, 102 millimeters thick. The Panther's 75mm gun fires a high-velocity, armor-piercing round. At 500 meters, it can penetrate 90 to 100 millimeters. The Pershing's armor is barely thick enough. The shell hits at an angle, doesn't fully penetrate, but the impact is massive. Rowland and his crew are stunned. Corporal Clarence Smoyer recovers first. He's the gunner. He centers the crosshairs on the Panther's turret. The range is closed to 480 meters. The Pershing's 90mm gun aims. Smoyer fires. The shell crosses the distance in under a second, hits the Panther's turret front, penetrates. The Panther's ammunition explodes. The turret lifts off. Smoke, fire, total destruction. The entire engagement lasts 12 seconds, and it's filmed. The Signal Corps cameraman captures everything. This footage becomes famous. It's shown in newsreels, training films, documentaries. It becomes the iconic image of the Pershing. American tank destroys German Panther. The Pershing proves it can fight German heavy tanks. But context matters. This is March 6th. Germany surrenders May 8th. 2 months later, the Pershing fought one Panther and won. But the war is already decided. The Sherman won the war. The Pershing arrived after victory was certain. This duel is symbolic, not strategic. The right tank, the wrong time. Roland and his crew continue fighting. They participate in clearing Cologne, then advance deeper into Germany. By April, German resistance is collapsing. Eagle 7 encounters scattered German forces, a few anti-tank guns, some Panzerfausts. But no more Panthers or Tigers. German heavy armor is gone, destroyed, abandoned, or out of fuel. The Pershing has nothing left to fight. May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe ends. The Pershings participated for 3 months. 20 tanks out of thousands of American tanks in Europe. They fought a handful of engagements, destroyed a few German tanks. But strategically, they were irrelevant. The Sherman won the war. The Pershing arrived too late. Chapter 7. Okinawa, cancelled. While Europe celebrates victory, the war continues in the Pacific. Japan fights on. American forces prepare for the invasion of Japan, Operation Downfall. Planners estimate casualties will be catastrophic. Millions of Japanese soldiers, fanatical resistance. American forces need every advantage. 12 M26 Pershings are selected for deployment to the Pacific. They're assigned to the 73rd Tank Battalion. The mission? Support the invasion of Japan. Provide heavy firepower against Japanese fortifications. The Pershings are loaded onto ships. Destination? Okinawa, the staging area for the invasion. May 31, 1945. The Pershings depart from the United States. The journey across the Pacific takes approximately 2 months. The Pershings arrive at Okinawa on August 4, 1945. But the Battle of Okinawa ended on June 22, over a month before the Pershings arrived. The tanks sit on the docks, waiting for orders. The invasion of Japan is planned for November. The Pershings will participate if the invasion happens. August 6, 1945. The United States drops an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. August 9, another atomic bomb on Nagasaki. Japan's leadership realizes the war is lost. August 15, Emperor Hirohito announces Japan's surrender. September 2nd, Japan formally surrenders. World War II ends. The 12 Pershings never see combat in the Pacific. They arrived at Okinawa on August 4th. Japan surrendered August 15th, 11 days later. Once again, the Pershing arrives too late for Okinawa, too late for the invasion of Japan, too late for World War II. This pattern defines the Pershing: the right weapon, the wrong time. Designed in 1942, deployed in 1945, 3 years late. And in those 3 years, the Sherman fought and won the war. The Pershing arrived after victory, symbolically important, strategically irrelevant. Part 3. Korea: Redemption and Rejection. Chapter 8. North Korea invades. June 25, 1950. North Korean forces invade South Korea. Over 150,000 soldiers, supported by 240 T-34-85 tanks, Soviet-supplied. The North Korean People's Army is well-equipped, well-trained. They advance rapidly. South Korean forces are overwhelmed. Within days, Seoul falls. South Korean forces retreat south. The United States intervenes. President Truman commits American forces. Under United Nations authority, American forces in Japan are ordered to Korea. The 8th Army, multiple divisions, but they're occupation forces, not combat-ready. Equipment is limited. Training is inadequate. They deploy anyway. South Korea is collapsing. American forces must stop the North Korean advance. American forces have limited armor, some M24 Chaffee light tanks, a few M4 Sherman mediums, but no heavy tanks. No weapons capable of fighting T-34-85s effectively. The Chaffee's 75mm gun cannot penetrate T-34 frontal armor. The Sherman 76mm gun can, but barely, and at close range only. American forces need better tanks. July 1950. The 8th Army requests M26 Pershings. The Pershings are in storage in Japan. They've been there since World War II ended. 5 years. No combat, no maintenance. The tanks are in poor condition, but they're available, and they're better than Chaffees or Shermans. The request is approved. 3 M26 Pershings are rushed to Korea. They're loaded onto ships, transported to Busan, the only port still in American hands. The Pershings arrive in late July. They're assigned to a provisional platoon, commanded by Lieutenant Samuel Fowler. The mission? Defend Busan. Prevent North Korean forces from capturing the port. If Busan falls, American forces will be pushed into the sea. But the 3 Pershings have problems. They've been in storage for 5 years. No maintenance. Seals are degraded. Fluids leaked. The engines are in poor condition. The transmissions are questionable. The tanks need overhaul, but there's no time. North Korean forces are advancing. The Pershings must deploy immediately. July 31st, 1950. Fowler's platoon deploys to Chinju, a strategic town west of Busan. North Korean forces are approaching. T-34-85s lead the advance. The 3 Pershings take defensive positions. This will be the first engagement between American and Soviet-designed tanks. The Pershing finally faces an equal opponent, or so everyone hopes. The North Korean T-34s advance. Fowler orders his platoon to engage. Range, 1,000 meters. The Pershings fire. But problems occur immediately. One Pershing's engine overheats. The cooling system failed. The tank is immobilized. Another Pershing's transmission fails. Gears stripped. The tank can't move. The third Pershing fires several rounds. Then its gun recoil system fails. The gun won't fire reliably. All three Pershings are non-operational. Within an hour of combat. Not from enemy action, from mechanical failure. 5 years of neglect, rushed deployment, inadequate maintenance. The Pershings break down before they can fight. Fowler orders evacuation. The crews destroy the tanks. Demolition charges to prevent capture. The three Pershings never killed a single T-34. They failed before engaging. This is the Pershing's Korean War debut. A disaster. A humiliation. The tank that was supposed to save Pusan couldn't even operate. Chapter 9. Redemption. The First Kills. August 1950. More M-26 Pershings arrive in Korea. This time, they're properly maintained, prepared for combat. The 8th Army learns from the July disaster. Tanks can't be rushed into combat after years of storage. They need maintenance, testing, preparation. August 17, 1950. Marine Tank Company, 1st Marine Tank Battalion. 3 Pershings and several Shermans. They're defending positions near Obong-ri. North Korean forces attack, including T-34-85s. This is the moment. The Pershing's chance to prove itself. Marine Lieutenant Granville Sweet commands the lead Pershing. He sees the T-34s advancing. Range, 1,200 meters. Sweet orders his gunner to engage. The 90mm gun fires. The shell crosses the distance, hits the lead T-34 on the frontal armor, penetrates. The T-34 explodes. First kill. Second T-34. Sweet's gunner adjusts aim, fires, hit, penetrates. The T-34 burns. 2 kills. Third T-34 attempts to retreat. Another Pershing engages. Fires. Hit. The T-34 is immobilized. The crew evacuates. 3 T-34s destroyed in minutes. This is what the Pershing was designed for. Fighting enemy heavy tanks. The 90mm gun penetrates T-34 armor easily. At ranges where the T-34 cannot effectively return fire, the Pershing dominates. The Marines are ecstatic. Finally, a tank that can kill T-34s reliably. Over the next weeks, more Pershings arrive. By September, approximately 100 Pershings are in Korea. They're distributed across multiple units, 8th Army, Marines. They engage North Korean armor regularly. The results are consistent. Pershings dominate T-34s. Superior gun, superior armor. The Pershing's 90mm gun can penetrate T-34 frontal armor at 1,500 meters. The T-34's 85mm gun can penetrate Pershing frontal armor at 500 meters, but only from optimal angles. September 1950.
The Incheon Landing. United Nations forces land behind North Korean lines. The North Korean advance collapses. American forces break out of Pusan, begin advancing north. Pershings participate. They encounter retreating North Korean forces, destroy tanks, vehicles, artillery. The Pershings are effective. Finally, the tank proves its worth. The Battle of the Bowling Alley, August to September 1950. 73rd Tank Battalion, multiple Pershings.
North Korean forces attempt night attacks. T-34s advance down a narrow valley. American forces call it the Bowling Alley. The T-34s advance in column. The Pershings engage from defensive positions. Long range, overlapping fields of fire. 13 T-34s destroyed. 5 Su-76 self-propelled guns destroyed. 0 American tank losses. The Pershing's superiority is clear. By October 1950, North Korean armor is decimated. Approximately 90 T-34s destroyed. The Pershing is credited with 29 kills. Other kills go to Shermans, tank destroyers, and air power. But the Pershing proved decisive. It gave American forces a weapon that could fight T-34s on favorable terms. The tank finally fulfilled its purpose, fighting enemy heavy tanks, winning. But the story doesn't end here. The Korean War continues, and the Pershing's problems return for different reasons. Chapter 10. The Mobility Problem. November 1950. Chinese forces intervene in the Korean War. Over 300,000 soldiers. They attack United Nations forces, drive them south. The war's character changes. Mobile warfare, rapid advances, retreats. The terrain is mountainous, roads are poor. Winter is approaching. The M26 Pershing struggles in these conditions. The underpowered engine, 11 horsepower per ton. On flat terrain, adequate. On mountains, inadequate. The Pershing's engine strains, overheats. The cooling system can't handle prolonged high RPM operation. Pershings frequently break down. Not from combat damage, from overheating. Transmission failures, engine failures. American tank crews compare the Pershing to the Sherman. The Sherman M4A3E8, Easy 8. 15 horsepower per ton. More reliable engine, better cooling. The Sherman climbs mountains faster, travels longer without breakdowns. The Sherman's 76mm gun is adequate against T-34s at close range. Not as good as the Pershing's 90mm, but adequate. Crews start preferring Shermans over Pershings. The Sherman is more reliable, better mobility, easier to maintain. The Pershing's 90mm gun is superior, but mobility matters more in Korean mountains. A Sherman that reaches the battlefield is more valuable than a Pershing that breaks down halfway there. By December 1950, American commanders recognized the problem. The Pershing is not well suited for Korean terrain. The engine is inadequate. Many Pershings are temporarily withdrawn, sent to Japan for overhaul. The engine and transmission need upgrades, but these upgrades take time, months. Meanwhile, Shermans continue fighting. Some Pershings remain in Korea, units that can maintain them, terrain that favors them. But the Pershing is no longer the primary American tank in Korea. The Sherman retakes that role. The same Sherman that the Pershing was supposed to replace. The Sherman proves more valuable in Korea's conditions. Better mobility, better reliability, adequate firepower. This is the Pershing's second failure. First, it arrived too late for World War II. Second, it's inadequate for Korea's terrain. The tank designed to fight in Europe, flat terrain, good roads. It struggles in Korea. Mountains, poor roads, extreme weather. The Pershing is the wrong tank. Again. 1951. The M26 is withdrawn from frontline service, replaced by the M46 Patton. The Patton is an upgraded Pershing, new engine, Continental AV 1793, 810 horsepower, improved transmission, better cooling. The mobility problems are solved. The M46 performs well in Korea, but it's not the M26. The Pershing service in Korea ends, not with glory, with quiet withdrawal, replaced by a better version of itself. The Pershing fought in Korea for approximately 1 year, July 1950 to July 1951. It achieved notable successes, 29 confirmed kills against T-34s, proof that the 90mm gun and armor design were sound. But mechanical reliability and mobility were inadequate. The tank that arrived too late for World War II was also wrong for Korea. Different war, different problems, same result. The Pershing didn't meet expectations. Part 4. The verdict. Timing is everything. Chapter 11. Pershing versus other tanks. Let's compare the M26 Pershing to other heavy tanks of World War II and Korea, because this comparison reveals important truths about the Pershing's place in history. Gun power. Pershing, 90mm M3, penetration at 1,000 meters, 120mm. Panther, 75mm KWK-42, penetration at 1,000 meters, 138mm. Tiger 1, 88mm KWK-36, penetration at 1,000 meters, 120mm. King Tiger, 88mm KWK-43, penetration at 1,000 meters, 153mm. IS-2, 122mm D-25T, penetration at 1,000 meters, 160mm. T-34-85, 85mm ZIS-S-53, penetration at 1,000 meters, 100mm. The Pershing's gun is comparable to the Tiger 1, better than the T-34-85, worse than the Panther, King Tiger, and IS-2. Mid-tier, not exceptional, but adequate. Armor protection. Pershing, frontal hull 102mm at 46 degrees, effective thickness approximately 145mm. Panther, frontal hull 80mm at 55 degrees, effective thickness approximately 140mm. Tiger 1, frontal hull 100mm vertical. King Tiger, frontal hull 180 millimeters at 50 degrees. Effective thickness over 250 millimeters. IS-2. Frontal hull, 120 millimeters at 60 degrees. Effective thickness over 200 millimeters. T-34-85. Frontal hull, 45 millimeters at 60 degrees. Effective thickness approximately 90 millimeters. The Pershing's armor is comparable to the Panther. Better than the T-34-85. Worse than the Tiger I, King Tiger, and IS-2. Again, mid-tier. Mobility. Pershing. Power-to-weight ratio. 11 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 40 kilometers per hour. Panther. 16 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 46 kilometers per hour. Tiger I. 13 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 38 kilometers per hour. King Tiger. 10 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 41 kilometers per hour. IS-2. 11 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 37 kilometers per hour. T-34-85. 19 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 55 kilometers per hour. Sherman M4A3E8. 15 horsepower per ton. Maximum speed, 48 kilometers per hour. The Pershing is slower than the Panther, Sherman, and T-34-85, comparable to the King Tiger and IS-2, both of which are criticized for being underpowered. The Pershing has a mobility problem. Operational reliability. This is harder to quantify, but reports are consistent. The Pershing's reliability is worse than the Sherman, better than the King Tiger and Panther. The engine overheats under stress. The transmission fails frequently. Maintenance is complex. Spare parts availability is limited during its brief service. The Pershing is not a reliable tank. Combat effectiveness. In World War II, minimal. 20 tanks, 3 months of service. A handful of engagements. Symbolically important. Strategically irrelevant. In Korea, notable. 29 confirmed kills against T-34s. Proof the design works. But mobility problems limit effectiveness. Withdrawn after 1 year. Replaced by the M46 Patton. Overall, the Pershing's combat record is mediocre. Final comparison verdict. The Pershing is a mid-tier heavy tank. Not the best, not the worst. Better than the Sherman and T-34-85. Worse than the Panther, King Tiger, and IS-2. Its 90mm gun is adequate. Armor is adequate. Mobility is poor. Reliability is poor. If the Pershing had arrived in 1943, it would have been valuable. American forces would have a weapon capable of fighting German heavy tanks. But it arrived in 1945, 3 years late. By then, the Sherman had already won the war. The Pershing's technical adequacy doesn't compensate for its late arrival. Chapter 12. The Legacy and Final Verdict. So what's the final verdict on the M26 Pershing? Was it a good tank? A failure? A missed opportunity? The answer depends on perspective. As a weapon system, the Pershing was adequate. The 90mm gun could penetrate German and Soviet heavy tanks. The armor could withstand most enemy guns at medium range. The design was sound.
but the execution was flawed. Underpowered engine, overloaded transmission. These problems limited effectiveness. As a strategic asset, the Pershing was irrelevant in World War II. 20 tanks, 3 months of service. Germany was collapsing. The Sherman already won the war. The Pershing arrived after victory was certain. It didn't change the outcome, didn't save lives, didn't shorten the war. It was too late. As a political symbol, the Pershing was important. It proved America could build heavy tanks, could match German engineering. This was important for national prestige, for post-war military development. The Pershing led to the M46 Patton, the M47, the M48, the M60, a lineage of American heavy tanks. The Pershing was the first, not the best, but the first.
In Korea, the Pershing had its moment. It proved the design worked, defeated T-34-85s. But mechanical problems and mobility limitations prevented it from being the solution American forces needed. The Sherman remained more valuable. The Pershing was withdrawn, replaced, again inadequate, for different reasons. The Pershing's story is a lesson in timing. Good weapons deployed late are worse than adequate weapons deployed on time. The Sherman was adequate, but it arrived in 1942, fought for 3 years, won the war. The Pershing was better than the Sherman, but it arrived in 1945, fought for 3 months, changed nothing. American military historian Stephen Zaloga writes, "The Pershing was a competent tank that arrived too late to matter. Its design was adequate for 1943. By 1945, it was merely average. And average tanks don't win wars. Timely, adequate tanks win wars." German General Heinz Guderian said after the war, "The American Pershing was a capable tank. If it had arrived in 1943, it would have troubled us greatly. But it arrived in 1945. By then, Germany was defeated. The Pershing proved Americans could build good tanks, but they proved it when it no longer mattered." Soviet tank commander Dmitry Loza, who fought against Germans in IS-2s and against Americans in Korea, wrote, "The Pershing was America's answer to the Tiger and IS-2, but the answer came too late. In Korea, the Pershing was adequate against our T-34s, but your Sherman was more reliable, more mobile. In war, reliability often matters more than firepower." The M26 Pershing, designed in 1942, deployed in 1945, 3 years too late. The tank that could have changed World War II, if it had arrived in time. The weapon that proved timing is everything. The machine that demonstrates sometimes being right isn't enough. You must also be on time. Not a failure, but not a success. A lesson. The right weapon at the wrong time is the wrong weapon. This is the Pershing's legacy. This is its verdict. Thank you for watching Iron Witness. Subscribe for more untold stories of the machines that shaped history.
Opening. The Bridge at Remagen. March 7, 1945, 3:15 in the afternoon, Remagen, Germany. Ludendorff Bridge over the Rhine River. American forces have just captured the bridge, the only intact bridge across the Rhine. If American forces can hold it, They can pour troops and armor into Germany's heartland. The war will end within weeks. German tank commander Hauptmann Joseph Bauer sits in his King Tiger heavy tank. The tank is named Faust, Iron Fist. It's positioned 200 meters from the bridge's eastern approach. Bauer has orders: hold the bridge. Destroy any American forces attempting to cross. Do not retreat. Bauer looks through his periscope. American Sherman tanks are advancing across the bridge. 3 Shermans. 4. 5. Infantry follows. The bridge is packed with American forces. This is Germany's nightmare. The Rhine barrier broken. Bauer's radio crackles. Faust, engage enemy armor. Fire at will. Bauer acknowledges. His gunner, Feldwebel Klaus Richter, already has the first Sherman centered in his sight. Range, 400 meters. Point-blank range for the King Tiger's 88mm gun. Fire! The King Tiger recoils. Massive. The shell crosses the bridge in less than a second, hits the lead Sherman on the frontal armor. The Sherman's armor is 51 millimeters thick. The King Tiger's shell penetrates 150 millimeters at this range. The Sherman explodes. Catastrophic ammunition detonation. The turret flies 20 meters, crashes into the Rhine. Second Sherman. Richter adjusts aim. Fires. Another hit. Another kill. The Sherman burns. Blocks the bridge. American infantry scatter. Seek cover behind the burning wrecks. Third Sherman attempts to reverse, retreat back across the bridge. Richter fires. The shell hits the Sherman's side armor, penetrates. The Sherman explodes. 4 Shermans destroyed in 90 seconds. The King Tiger is doing its job perfectly. But then Bauer feels something wrong. A vibration. A grinding sound from the rear of the tank. The engine sounds different, strained. The driver, Unteroffizier Hans Vogel, speaks into the intercom. Sir, transmission problem. Final drive overheating. Oil pressure dropping. Bauer's heart sinks. Not now. Not here. The King Tiger weighs 70 tons. The final drive units are designed for 45 tons. They've been operating at maximum stress for 3 days. Constant movement, no maintenance. This was inevitable. Can you keep us operational? Maybe 10 minutes, maybe less. The transmission is failing. 10 minutes. Bauer makes a decision. They'll fight for 10 minutes. Kill as many American tanks as possible. Then evacuate the crew. Destroy the King Tiger. Standard procedure when mechanical failure is imminent. 5th Sherman appears. Bauer orders fire. Hit. Kill. 6th Sherman. Fire. Hit. Kill. 7th Sherman. Fire. Hit. Kill. 10 Shermans destroyed. The bridge approach is a graveyard of burning American armor. American forces have stopped advancing. They're calling for artillery support, air support. They know a King Tiger is here. They won't advance until it's destroyed. But the King Tiger can't retreat. The transmission has completely failed. The tank is immobilized. Vogel reports, Sir, we're dead in the water. Transmission seized. We can rotate the turret. We can fire. But we can't move. Bauer makes the final decision. Abandon tank. Prepare demolition charges. The crew evacuates through the top hatches. Bauer is the last to leave. He arms the demolition charges. 90 seconds. He climbs out. Runs. The King Tiger explodes. The most powerful tank of World War II. Destroyed by its own crew. Because the transmission failed. This is the King Tiger's war. Technically superior. Tactically effective. Strategically irrelevant. The tank that could destroy anything it faced. but couldn't reach the battlefield. The weapon that proved Germany had lost the war long before the fighting ended. This is the story of the King Tiger, the Königstiger, Tiger II, the tank with 180 millimeters of frontal armor, the gun that could kill at 3,500 meters, the machine that German crews called both a masterpiece and a curse, the weapon that demonstrated the limits of technological superiority. Welcome to Iron Witness. Part 1. Origins. The Quest for Invincibility. Chapter 1. The Tiger I. Problem. Let's go back to 1943. Germany has a problem. The Tiger I is successful. It dominates battlefields, destroys Soviet and Allied tanks at ranges beyond 1,500 meters. Crews love it, commanders praise it. But German military leadership sees the future, and the future is concerning. Soviet heavy tanks are improving. The KV-85, the experimental IS tanks. Soviet engineers are developing 122mm guns. These guns can penetrate the Tiger I's frontal armor at medium ranges. The Tiger I's 100mm of frontal armor is adequate now, but for how long? American tank development is also advancing. Reports indicate Americans are developing heavier tanks. The T-26, later designated M-26 Pershing, with 90mm guns and heavier armor. Not yet in production, but coming. German tank losses in 1943 are increasing, not because the Tiger I is inadequate, but because Germany is outnumbered. Soviet tank production exceeds German production by 3-1. American production will add another massive advantage for the Allies. Germany needs technological superiority, because quantitative superiority is impossible. Adolf Hitler summons his top tank designers to Rostenburg. May 1943. The meeting is classified. Present are Ferdinand Porsche, chief designer at Porsche, Erwin Otters, chief engineer at Henschel, Albert Speer, minister of armaments, and senior military commanders. Hitler speaks. Gentlemen, I've reviewed reports from the Eastern Front. The Tiger I is excellent, but our enemies are improving their tanks. I want a new heavy tank, heavier armor than any enemy tank, a more powerful gun. I want a tank that is completely invulnerable from the front, a tank that can destroy any enemy tank at any range. Cost is irrelevant. Complexity is acceptable. I want invincibility. Porsche responds first. Mein Führer, Porsche can deliver such a tank. We have designs ready. The VK4502P, 180mm of frontal armor, sloped design, electric drive transmission, 800 horsepower engines. Hitler nods. And Henschel? Otters speaks. We also have a design, the VK4503H, 180mm frontal armor, but we propose a mechanical transmission, more reliable than Porsche's electric system, easier to produce, easier to maintain. Hitler listens, then makes a pronouncement. Both companies will build prototypes. Trials will occur in October. The superior design wins the contract. I want production to begin by January 1944. The competition begins. But history has already shown Porsche's weakness. The Tiger I competition. Porsche's design lost to Henschel. Porsche's electric transmission proved unreliable, expensive, difficult to maintain. The same problems will plague the VK4502P. Chapter 2. The Design Competition. Porsche and Henschel work frantically. 6 months to design, build, and test prototypes. This is extraordinarily compressed. The Tiger I took 2 years from concept to production. The new heavy tank must be ready in 6 months. Porsche's VK4502P takes shape first. The design is radical. 180 millimeters of frontal armor, sloped at 50 degrees. This creates an effective thickness of over 250 millimeters, impenetrable to any known gun. The turret is massive, houses an 88mm KWK-43L71 gun. This is a longer-barreled version of the Tiger I's gun. More velocity, more penetration. The hull is unique. The armor is welded and bolted, not cast like Soviet tanks. This makes production complex, but Porsche argues it provides superior protection. The tracks are narrow, 460 millimeters. This will be a problem. The engine system is Porsche's signature design. 2 gasoline engines. Each drives an electric generator. The generators power electric motors connected to the tracks. This is similar to a modern diesel-electric locomotive. Porsche claims advantages: better control, better acceleration, more efficient power delivery. But German engineers are skeptical. Electric transmissions are heavy, expensive, require copper. Copper is scarce in Germany by 1943, and electric systems are vulnerable to damage. One hit on the generator and the entire tank is immobilized. Henschel's VK4503H takes a more conservative approach. 180 millimeters of frontal armor, also sloped. Same gun as Porsche's design, the 88mm KWK-43L71. But the hull and transmission are conventional, all mechanical, no electric components. The engine is the Maybach HL230P30, 700 horsepower. The same engine as the Panther tank, proven, reliable. The transmission is the Maybach Olvar OG 401216B, 8 forward gears, 4 reverse gears. This transmission is designed for 45 tons. The VK4503H will weigh approximately 68 to 70 tons. This is a problem, but Henschel engineers believe the transmission can handle the load. With modifications. The tracks are wider than Porsche's design, 800 millimeters, better ground pressure, less likely to sink in mud. The suspension is torsion bar, 9 road wheels per side, overlapping design, complex to maintain, but provides excellent ride quality and weight distribution. October 1943. Both prototypes are complete. Trials begin at Henschel's proving grounds in Kassel. The tests are comprehensive: mobility, armor resistance, gun accuracy, reliability. The German military wants data, not opinions. Mobility tests. Porsche's VK4502P performs adequately on flat, hard ground. But on soft terrain, the narrow tracks sink. Ground pressure is too high. The tank bogs down in mud. The electric transmission overheats during prolonged operation. Cooling is inadequate. Henschel's VK4503H performs better. The wider tracks distribute weight effectively. The tank crosses soft ground without excessive sinking. The mechanical transmission operates smoothly. No overheating. Gear changes are responsive. Armor tests. Both designs have 180 millimeters of frontal armor. Both are impenetrable to existing anti-tank guns at combat ranges. Soviet 85mm guns cannot penetrate frontally. American 76mm guns cannot penetrate. Even the Soviet 100mm gun struggles at long range. The armor is effective. Gun tests. Both use the same gun. Performance is identical. At 1,000 meters, the 88mm KWK-43 can penetrate 153 millimeters of armor. At 2,000 meters, 112 millimeters. This gun can kill any Allied or Soviet tank at any practical combat range, including the Soviet IS-2. Reliability tests. This is where Porsche's design fails catastrophically. After 100 kilometers of operation, the electric generator develops problems. Overheating, electrical shorts. The tank is immobilized for repairs. After 200 kilometers, the generator fails completely. The tank is non-operational. Henschel's VK4503H operates for 500 kilometers without major issues. Minor transmission problems, overheating during extreme operations, but overall reliable. Vastly more reliable than Porsche's design. November 1943. The decision is made. Henschel wins. The VK4503H is selected for production. The tank is officially designated Panzerkampfwagen Tiger Ausf B, Special Vehicle 182. But everyone calls it the King Tiger, or in German, Königstiger. Porsche is furious. Again, his design has been rejected. But the military's decision is correct. Porsche's electric transmission is a technological dead end. Too complex, too unreliable, too expensive. Germany cannot afford such complexity in 1943. Production orders are issued. Henschel will produce the hull and final assembly. Krupp will produce the turret. Maybach will supply engines. The initial production target, 50 King Tigers per month, beginning January 1944. This target will never be met. Chapter 3. Production Hell. January 1944. Production begins at Henschel's factory in Kassel. The first King Tiger rolls off the assembly line on January 26th. It's a momentous occasion. The most powerful tank in the world. 180 millimeters of frontal armor, the longest-range tank gun ever mounted. German propaganda films document the event, but production is immediately problematic. The King Tiger is extraordinarily complex. The hull requires 153 man-hours of welding. The turret casting weighs 11 tons, requires specialized equipment. The assembly process takes 300,000 man-hours per tank. Compare this to the Sherman, 10,000 man-hours. The King Tiger takes 30 times longer to build than a Sherman. Material requirements are enormous. Each King Tiger requires 40 tons of steel. Germany's steel production is declining in 1944. Allied bombing raids target factories, rail networks, supply lines. Steel is increasingly scarce. Labor is also scarce. Skilled workers are conscripted into the military. Factories rely on forced laborers, prisoners of war, concentration camp inmates. These workers are not motivated. Sabotage is common. Quality control suffers. Allied bombing campaigns intensify. February 1944. The RAF bombs Kassel. Henschel's factory is damaged. Production stops for 3 weeks. March 1944. Another raid. More damage. Another production delay. By April, Henschel is producing approximately 1 King Tiger per day, not 50 per month, 30 per month. Component shortages worsen the situation. Maybach engines are in short supply. The Maybach factory is also bombed. Engine deliveries are delayed. Krupp's turret production is slow. Each turret requires precision casting. Quality testing. Many castings are rejected due to flaws. Turret production averages 25 per month. This becomes the bottleneck. Transmission problems emerge early. The Maybach Ulvar transmission is overloaded. It's designed for 45 tons. The King Tiger weighs nearly 70 tons. Initial field reports indicate transmission failures after 100 to 150 kilometers. This is catastrophic. A tank that breaks down before reaching the battlefield is useless. Henschel engineers work to reinforce the transmission. Stronger gears, better bearings, improved cooling. These modifications help, Later King Tigers have transmissions that last 300 to 500 kilometers. Better, but still inadequate compared to Allied tanks. But by December 1944, 120 King Tigers have been produced. This is far below the original target of 600. Production rate is approximately 15 to 20 per month. Compared to Sherman production, 2,000 per month. The arithmetic is devastating. Fuel shortages compound Germany's problems. The King Tiger consumes fuel voraciously. The Maybach HL230P30 engine requires high-octane gasoline. Fuel consumption is 280 liters per 100 kilometers on roads, 480 liters per 100 kilometers cross-country. Germany's fuel production is collapsing. Synthetic fuel plants are bombed. Romanian oil fields are lost to Soviet advances. Even when King Tigers are produced, they often cannot be fueled. By March 1945, production effectively stops. The final King Tiger is completed. Total production? 492 tanks. Compared to Tiger I production, 1,347. Compared to Panther, 6,000. Compared to Sherman, 49,000. The King Tiger is rare. Extraordinarily rare. This rarity will define its combat history. Individual King Tigers will achieve legendary results. But strategically, the King Tiger is irrelevant. There are too few. They arrive too late. And they break down too often. Part 2. Combat Debut. Normandy and the Bulge. Chapter 4. Normandy. August 1944. August 1944. 2 months after D-Day. Allied forces have broken out of Normandy. German forces are retreating across France. Hitler orders a counteroffensive. Stabilize the front. Throw the Allies back to the sea. It's desperate. Unrealistic. But Hitler insists. Schwere Panzerabteilung 503. Heavy Tank Battalion 503. This unit receives the first King Tigers to see combat. 45 tanks. The battalion is commanded by Major Rolf Steineck. His orders: deploy to Normandy. Engage Allied armor. Support German defensive operations. The King Tigers are transported by rail from Germany to France. The journey is chaotic. Allied fighter bombers strafe trains. Rail lines are bombed. Bridges are destroyed. The King Tigers must be offloaded. Travel by road. The roads are congested with retreating German forces. Progress is slow. August 18, 1944. Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 reaches the front near Falaise. The battalion has 45 King Tigers, but mechanical problems have already begun. 7 King Tigers experienced transmission failures during the road march. 7 tanks, dead before seeing combat. 15% of the battalion immobilized, awaiting repairs that may never come. The remaining 38 King Tigers are organized into 3 companies. Each company has approximately 12 to 13 tanks. Steineck receives orders: attack Allied forces near Trun, break through Allied lines, allow encircled German forces to escape the Falaise pocket. August 19th. Dawn. 5. The King Tigers advance. The terrain is Norman bocage, thick hedgerows, narrow lanes, poor visibility. This terrain negates the King Tiger's primary advantage, long-range firepower. Combat will be close range, ambush fighting. First Company encounters American forces. Sherman tanks from the 2nd Armored Division. Range, 400 meters. The King Tigers open fire. The results are devastating. At 400 meters, the King Tiger's 88mm gun penetrates Sherman armor effortlessly. The first volley destroys 6 Shermans. The second volley destroys 4 more. 10 Shermans eliminated in 90 seconds. American forces retreat. Call for artillery. Within minutes, American 105mm howitzers respond. High explosive shells rain down on the King Tiger positions. The King Tiger's thick armor protects against artillery fragments, but the bombardment is disorienting. Visibility drops to zero. Smoke, dust, explosions everywhere. Then, disaster. Two King Tigers attempting to maneuver off the road become stuck. The Norman bocage has soft ground beneath the hedgerows. The King Tigers weigh 70 tons. Ground pressure is high despite wide tracks. Both tanks sink. Tracks churn mud. No forward progress. The crews attempt recovery, but without heavy equipment, it's impossible. Both King Tigers are abandoned. Demolition charges destroy them. 2 more tanks lost. Not to enemy fire, to terrain. Second Company fares better initially. They engage British forces, Cromwell tanks. The Cromwell is fast, but lightly armored, 63mm frontal armor. The King Tiger's gun destroys Cromwells at 800 to 1,000 meters. 15 Cromwells are destroyed. British forces withdraw, but then mechanical problems strike. 3 King Tigers experience final drive failures. The final drive units overheat, seize. The tanks are immobilized. Crews evacuate. Demolition charges are set. 3 more King Tigers lost. Third Company is ambushed by Allied tank destroyers, American M10 Wolverines. The M10 has a 76mm gun, open-top turret, light armor, but it's mobile, fast. The M10s use hit-and-run tactics, fire from concealment, withdraw before the King Tigers can return fire. 1 King Tiger is hit from the side at 300 meters. Side armor is 80mm. The 76mm HVAP round penetrates. The King Tiger burns. Crew evacuates. 1 man killed, 3 wounded. Another King Tiger is hit from the rear. Rear armor is only 50mm. The shell penetrates the engine compartment. Engine fire. Total loss. By August 21st, 3 days of combat, Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 has 23 operational King Tigers, from 45 at the start. 22 tanks lost, 8 destroyed by enemy action, 14 lost to mechanical failure or terrain. This is a 60% loss rate. Catastrophic. The survivors retreat east, toward Germany. They will never see combat again in France. The King Tigers that do reach Germany will be assigned to defensive positions. Static warfare, where their mechanical fragility matters less. But the pattern is established. The King Tiger is powerful, but brittle. It dominates individual engagements, but cannot sustain operations. The transmission is the fatal flaw. Without a reliable transmission, the King Tiger is a pillbox, not a tank. Chapter 5. The Battle of the Bulge. December 16, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Germany launches its final major offensive in the west, Operation Wacht am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine. The objective: break through Allied lines, capture Antwerp, cut off Allied supply lines, force a negotiated peace. Hitler commits Germany's last reserves, 29 divisions, approximately 450,000 men, over 1,000 tanks and assault guns, including over 150 King Tigers. This is Germany's largest concentration of King Tigers ever assembled. The King Tigers are assigned to elite SS Panzer divisions. 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte, 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend, and Kampfgruppe Piper. Commanded by SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Piper. Piper's Kampfgruppe includes 30 King Tigers. Piper's mission: spearhead the advance, break through American lines, capture fuel depots, reach the Meuse River within 48 hours. December 16, 4 in the morning, the offensive begins. German artillery bombards American positions, 1,500 guns, 30 minutes of concentrated fire. Then, Piper's Kampfgruppe advances. King Tigers lead. Panzer IVs and Panthers follow. Infantry in half-tracks. The column is 10 kilometers long. Initial progress is excellent. American forces are surprised, outnumbered, outgunned. The King Tigers crush resistance. American roadblocks are destroyed. M10 tank destroyers are obliterated at long range. The King Tiger's firepower is overwhelming. By noon, Piper's column has advanced 15 kilometers, captured the town of Lanzarote. American prisoners are taken. Piper interrogates them, asks about fuel depots. The Americans claim ignorance. Piper's column continues west. But problems emerge. The Ardennes roads are narrow, single lane, winding through forests. The King Tigers are 3.7 meters wide. Many roads are only 3 meters wide. The King Tigers scrape buildings, knock down trees. Progress slows. Fuel consumption is enormous. Piper's King Tigers carry 800 liters of fuel, enough for approximately 150 kilometers on roads. But cross-country consumption is double, and the Ardennes terrain is hilly. Engine power is maximum constantly. Fuel burns rapidly. By evening, Piper's column runs low on fuel. Piper orders a halt near the village of Stavlo. Scouts are sent to locate fuel. They find an American fuel depot at Stavlo, guarded, but lightly. Piper orders an attack at dawn, December 17, dawn. Piper's forces attack Stavlo. The American defenders resist, but they're outnumbered. The King Tiger's firepower is decisive. Stavlo falls. Piper's forces capture the fuel depot, 2 million liters of American gasoline. But there's a problem. The King Tigers use high-octane German gasoline. American gasoline is lower octane, 80 octane. The Maybach engines are designed for 100 octane fuel. Piper's engineers assess the situation. The engines can run on American fuel, but performance will be reduced. Engine strain will increase. Risk of damage is higher. Piper makes the decision. Refuel with American gasoline. There's no choice. Without fuel, the advance stops here. The King Tigers are refueled. The column advances west. But engine problems begin immediately. The lower octane fuel causes pre-ignition, knocking, power drops. Maximum speed decreases from 40 kilometers per hour to 30. The engines overheat. Cooling systems struggle. December 18, Piper's column reaches Stumo. American reinforcements have arrived. Paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne, tank destroyers. The Americans establish defensive positions. The road through Stumo is blocked. Piper orders an assault. The King Tigers advance, but the narrow roads limit maneuverability. Only 1 or 2 King Tigers can engage simultaneously. The others are stuck in column, waiting. American tank destroyers fire from concealed positions. M36 Jackson, 90mm gun. At close range, this gun can penetrate King Tiger side armor. 1 King Tiger is hit. Side penetration. Fire. Crew evacuates. Total loss. Piper's column is stalled. American artillery begins firing. 105mm howitzers, 155mm guns. The bombardment is intense. Not enough to destroy King Tigers, but enough to disrupt operations. Then, Allied air power arrives. P-47 Thunderbolts, armed with rockets and bombs. The weather has cleared. Allied aircraft swarm over the Ardennes. They attack anything moving. Piper's column is targeted. Bombs, rockets, strafing runs. 2 King Tigers are destroyed by bombs. Direct hits on engine decks. The armor is thinner on top. Bombs penetrate. Catastrophic fires. 3 King Tigers are damaged by near misses. Track damage, suspension damage. They're immobilized. Piper realizes the situation is hopeless. His column is stuck. Fuel is running low again. American reinforcements are arriving constantly. The advance has failed. December 23. Piper orders a retreat. The remaining King Tigers withdraw east, toward German lines. But many King Tigers cannot retreat. Mechanical failures, fuel exhaustion, damaged suspensions. Piper orders these tanks destroyed. Crews set demolition charges. Abandon the tanks. Retreat on foot. Of 30 King Tigers that began the offensive, only 7 reached German lines operational. 23 lost, 8 destroyed in combat, 15 abandoned due to mechanical failure or lack of fuel. The Battle of the Bulge demonstrates the King Tiger's fundamental weakness. In a war of movement, mechanical reliability matters more than firepower. The King Tiger has unmatched firepower, but it cannot sustain mobile operations. Fuel consumption is too high. Transmission reliability is too low. When the offensive becomes defensive, the King Tiger's advantages disappear. Chapter 6. The Eastern Front. The Eastern Front, 19 Front, 1945. Germany is retreating on all fronts. Soviet forces advance relentlessly, overwhelming numbers. The Red Army has learned combined arms warfare. Artillery, infantry, tanks, air support. Coordinated assaults that German forces cannot stop. King Tigers are deployed to critical sectors, defensive strongpoints, block Soviet advances, buy time for German forces to retreat, establish new defensive lines. The King Tigers are positioned in hull-down positions, only the turret visible, camouflaged, waiting. Soviet tactics have evolved. They know German heavy tanks are dangerous at long range, so they don't engage at long range. Soviet forces use artillery to suppress German positions. Mass bombardment. Then infantry and T-34 tanks advance under cover of smoke. Get close. Overwhelm with numbers. Individual King Tiger actions are impressive. January 1945, near Warsaw. A single King Tiger commanded by Oberfeldwebel Kurt Nispel holds a road junction. Soviet forces attack with 30 T-34s. Nispel's King Tiger destroys 16 T-34s in a single engagement. The Soviets retreat, regroup, attack again. This time with IS-2 heavy tanks. The IS-2 is the Soviet answer to the King Tiger. 122 mm gun, 120 mm of sloped frontal armor. It can penetrate the King Tiger's frontal armor at ranges under 1,000 meters. The King Tiger can penetrate the IS-2 at similar ranges. It's an even match. Knispel engages the IS-2s at 1,200 meters, long range. The King Tiger fires. First shot hits an IS-2 on the frontal armor, penetrates. The IS-2 explodes. Second shot, another IS-2, penetrates, destroyed. Third shot, the remaining IS-2 fires back. The shell hits Knispel's King Tiger on the frontal armor, 180 millimeters thick. The shell bounces off, no penetration. Knispel fires again, hits the IS-2 on the turret, penetrates. The IS-2 burns. 3 IS-2s destroyed, 0 King Tiger losses. Knispel's actions are reported up the chain of command. He's recommended for the Knight's Cross. But the recommendation is lost in the chaos of Germany's collapse. But individual successes cannot change the strategic situation. For every King Tiger success, a dozen German tanks are destroyed. Soviet numerical superiority is overwhelming, and King Tiger mechanical problems continue. February 1945, near Budapest. Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 operates in defensive positions. The battalion has 18 King Tigers operational. 22 are non-operational due to mechanical failures. Battle damage, lack of spare parts. The operational King Tigers are spread across a 50-kilometer front. isolated, supporting isolated German units. Soviet forces attack with overwhelming artillery, Katyusha rockets, heavy mortars. The bombardment lasts 2 hours. Then Soviet infantry and tanks advance. T-34s, IS-2s, self-propelled guns. The Germans are outnumbered 10-1. The King Tigers exact a heavy toll. Long-range firepower destroys Soviet tanks before they can close. But Soviet tactics are effective. They sacrifice the first wave of T-34s, draw German fire, reveal German positions. Then artillery bombards those positions. The second wave advances, gets closer, overwhelms the defenders with numbers. One King Tiger is destroyed by artillery. A direct hit on the engine deck. The fuel tanks rupture. Fire spreads. Ammunition explodes. Total loss. Another King Tiger is flanked by a platoon of T-34s. They engage from 3 sides simultaneously. Side and rear hits. Multiple penetrations. The crew evacuates. 4 men escape. The loader is killed. By March 1945, Schwere Panzerabteilung 503 has 8 King Tigers operational. 10 have been destroyed. 22 are abandoned due to lack of fuel, spare parts, or crew. The battalion is disbanded. The surviving King Tigers are transferred to other units, or abandoned. The pattern is consistent across the Eastern Front. King Tigers dominate individual engagements, but they cannot stop the Soviet advance. There are too few. They arrive too late. And when they break down, there are no spare parts, no recovery vehicles, no time. They're destroyed by their own crews, or captured by the Soviets. By April 1945, most King Tigers on the Eastern Front are gone. Destroyed, abandoned, captured. A few reach Berlin. They participate in the final defense, static positions, no mobility required. In this role, the King Tiger is effective, but it doesn't matter. Germany has lost. Part 3. The Final Battles and Statistics. Chapter 7. Defense of Germany. March 1945. Allied forces cross the Rhine River, the last natural barrier before Germany's industrial heartland. German forces are collapsing. Units are under strength. Equipment is obsolete or destroyed. Morale is shattered. But Hitler orders fanatical resistance. Every town, every river, every building. Fight to the death. King Tigers are positioned at key defensive points. River crossings, road junctions, strategic towns. They're used as mobile pillboxes. The transmission problems that plagued offensive operations matter less in static defense. The tanks don't need to move long distances. They sit, wait, fire. The Battle of Remagen, March 7th to March 25th. American forces capture the Ludendorff Bridge, the only intact Rhine crossing. Hitler is furious. He orders immediate counterattacks, destroy the bridge, throw the Americans back across the Rhine. 4 King Tigers are rushed to Remagen. Their mission? Block the bridge approaches, destroy American armor attempting to cross. The King Tigers take positions 200 to 500 meters from the bridge. Camouflaged, hull down, invisible to American observers. The Americans attempt to push armor across the bridge. Shermans, M26 Pershings, tank destroyers. The King Tigers open fire from concealed positions at short range. The results are devastating. Over 20 American tanks are destroyed in 3 days. The bridge approach becomes a killing field. But American artillery responds. 155mm guns, 8-inch howitzers, massive bombardment. The King Tigers are buried under explosions. Not enough to penetrate the armor, but enough to damage sights, track, suspension, and enough to terrify the crews. American engineers work frantically to construct pontoon bridges, bypass the Ludendorff Bridge, bring more forces across. More tanks, more artillery, more infantry. The King Tigers are outnumbered. outflanked, and running low on ammunition. One King Tiger suffers a transmission failure. The crew attempts repairs. Impossible without specialized tools. The tank is immobilized. The crew evacuates, sets demolition charges. The King Tiger explodes. Another King Tiger is hit by artillery. The turret traverse mechanism is damaged. The turret won't rotate. The tank is effectively useless. It's abandoned. By March 25th, all 4 King Tigers at Remagen are lost. 2 destroyed by their crews, 1 captured intact by American forces, 1 destroyed by sustained artillery fire. The Americans have secured the bridgehead. German resistance collapses. Similar patterns occur across Germany. King Tigers delay Allied advances, inflict casualties, but they cannot stop the advance. Allied material superiority is overwhelming. For every King Tiger, there are 50 Allied tanks, 100 artillery pieces, unlimited air power. Germany's defeat is inevitable. April 1945, Berlin, the final battle. Soviet forces encircle the city. Over 2.5 million Soviet soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 7,000 aircraft. German defenders number approximately 300,000. Many are old men, boys, poorly trained, poorly equipped. Approximately 15 King Tigers participate in Berlin's defense. They're positioned at key intersections, government buildings, blocking streets. Most have limited mobility. Fuel is scarce. Some King Tigers are completely immobilized, used as stationary gun positions. Soviet assault groups advance carefully. They've learned to respect German heavy tanks. Infantry clears buildings, identifies tank positions, calls in artillery. Massive bombardment. Then tanks advance, get close, overwhelm with firepower. One King Tiger defends the Reichstag approaches. It destroys 8 Soviet T-34s, 3 IS-2s. But Soviet forces bypass the position. Attack from multiple directions. The King Tiger crew runs out of ammunition. They evacuate, set fire to the tank. The last King Tiger in Berlin burns on May 1st, 1945. The King Tiger's war ends where it began, in defeat. Not because the tank is inadequate, but because Germany's strategic situation is hopeless. Technology cannot compensate for industrial inferiority. Superior tanks cannot defeat superior numbers. The King Tiger proved this brutal truth. Chapter 8. Combat Statistics. Let's examine the King Tiger's combat record, because the statistics tell the complete story. Production: 492 King Tigers built, January 1944 to March 1945, 15 months. Compare to Sherman production in the same period, over 30,000. Compare to T-34 production, over 40,000. The King Tiger is extraordinarily rare. Combat deployment. Approximately 350 King Tigers saw combat. 142 remained in Germany, used for training, or never left the factories due to fuel shortages, transport problems. Of those deployed, combat readiness averaged 50 to 60%. At any given time, only 175 to 200 King Tigers were operational. Combat losses. Total King Tiger losses approximately 450. 25 destroyed in combat. 150 abandoned due to mechanical failure. 100 destroyed by crews to prevent capture. 50 captured by Allied or Soviet forces. 10 destroyed in transit by air raids. Kill ratio. The King Tiger's kill-to-loss ratio is difficult to calculate precisely. Different sources give different numbers. Conservative estimates suggest 10 to 1. 10 Allied or Soviet tanks destroyed for every King Tiger lost to enemy action. Optimistic estimates suggest 20 to 1. But these ratios are misleading. They only count King Tigers lost to direct enemy action. They don't count King Tigers abandoned due to mechanical failure, or destroyed by crews, or lost to air attack. If we count all losses, the ratio drops dramatically, perhaps 3-to-1, perhaps 5-to-1. Still impressive, but not decisive. Crew casualties. King Tiger crew casualties are difficult to estimate. Incomplete records. Chaos of Germany's collapse. Conservative estimates suggest 20 to 30% casualty rates. Killed or wounded. Compare to Sherman crew casualties, 18% killed, 30% wounded. King Tiger crews actually had higher casualty rates. Why? Because King Tigers were often outnumbered, surrounded. When a King Tiger was penetrated, escape was difficult. The heavy armor that protected also trapped. Mechanical reliability. King Tiger operational readiness averaged 50 to 60%. Out of 100 King Tigers, 50 to 60 are mission ready at any time. Compared to Sherman, 99%. Compared to T-34, 95%. Even compared to Panther, 60 to 70%. The King Tiger is less reliable than the Panther, which is already considered unreliable. The transmission is the primary failure point. Average lifespan before major transmission failure, 300 to 500 kilometers. Some King Tigers fail after 100 kilometers. A few last 1,000 kilometers. But the average is approximately 400 kilometers. This is catastrophically low for mobile warfare. Fuel consumption. King Tiger fuel consumption is approximately 280 liters per 100 kilometers on roads, 480 liters per 100 kilometers cross-country. Fuel capacity is 800 liters. Range on roads, 285 kilometers. Range cross-country, 166 kilometers. This is inadequate for offensive operations. Compared to Sherman, fuel consumption approximately 250 liters per 100 kilometers. Fuel capacity approximately 625 liters. Range approximately 250 kilometers. Better than King Tiger despite smaller fuel capacity, because the Sherman is lighter, more fuel efficient. Cost effectiveness. Each King Tiger costs approximately 300,000 Reichsmarks. Sherman costs approximately $50,000, approximately equivalent to 150,000 Reichsmarks. The King Tiger costs twice as much as a Sherman, but takes 30 times longer to build, requires 3 times more steel, and breaks down constantly. Cost effectiveness is abysmal. Strategic impact. The King Tiger's strategic impact is negligible. 492 tanks cannot change a war involving millions of soldiers, tens of thousands of tanks. When America alone produces 49,000 Shermans, Germany's 492 King Tigers are irrelevant. The arithmetic is brutal but clear. Individual King Tiger actions are impressive, tactical victories. But tactical victories don't win wars. Strategic superiority wins wars. Germany lacks strategic superiority. Production, resources, manpower. Technology cannot compensate for these deficiencies. The King Tiger represents Germany's fundamental miscalculation. Germany believed superior technology could defeat superior numbers. History proves this wrong. Wars are won by logistics, production, sustainment. The King Tiger is a technological masterpiece, but a strategic failure. Chapter 9. Famous King Tiger Aces. Despite the King Tiger's limitations, individual tank commanders achieved remarkable results. Let's examine 3 of the most famous King Tiger aces. Kurt Knispel, Germany's highest-scoring tank ace. 168 confirmed kills, possibly over 200 total. Knispel served in the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion. He commanded various tanks throughout the war. Panzer III's, Panzer IV's, Tigers, and finally, King Tigers. Knispel was an exceptional gunner and commander. His crews consistently achieved the highest kill counts. But Knispel was also unusual. He refused to join the Nazi Party. He was reprimanded multiple times for defending foreign workers from abuse. His anti-Nazi attitudes prevented promotion. He remained an NCO his entire career, despite being more skilled than most officers. Knispel died in April 1945, near Vostitz, Czechoslovakia. His King Tiger was hit by Soviet artillery. Knispel was wounded, died 2 days later. He was posthumously promoted to lieutenant. Too late to matter. Otto Carius, one of Germany's most decorated tank commanders, credited with over 150 tank kills. Carius initially served in Tiger I's. He transferred to King Tigers in late 1944, assigned to the 512th Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion. This unit used Jagd Tigers, the tank destroyer version of the King Tiger. Carius wrote a memoir after the war, Tigers in the Mud. The book describes his combat experiences. He's honest about the King Tiger's problems: transmission failures, fuel shortages, overwhelming Allied numbers. But he also praises the King Tiger's firepower and armor. Carius survived the war. He became a pharmacist, ran a successful pharmacy for decades. He remained an advocate for German tank veterans, defending them against accusations. He died in 2015 at age 92. Ernst Barkmann, Panther ace, credited with 82 tank kills. Barkmann served primarily in Panthers, but he encountered King Tigers regularly. He describes them in his memoirs as magnificent but fragile. He witnessed King Tiger's successes and failures. Barkmann's perspective is valuable. He saw the King Tiger from the outside, as a fellow tank commander, not as a crew member. His assessment is balanced. The King Tiger dominated when it worked, but it often didn't work. Mechanical problems, fuel problems. The King Tiger was a weapon for ideal conditions, but war rarely provides ideal conditions. These aces demonstrate the King Tiger's potential. In the hands of skilled crews, the King Tiger is devastating. But skill cannot overcome mechanical fragility, strategic impossibility. The war is lost. Individual brilliance cannot change this. Part 4. The Verdict and Legacy. Chapter 10. King Tiger versus other heavy tanks. Let's directly compare the King Tiger to other heavy tanks of World War II, because this comparison reveals fundamental truths about tank design philosophy. Gunpower. King Tiger. 88mm KWK-43 L71. Penetration at 1,000 meters, 153 millimeters. Tiger 1. 88mm KWK-36 L56. Penetration at 1,000 meters, 120 millimeters. IS-2. 122mm D25T. Penetration at 1,000 meters, 160 millimeters. Winner. IS-2. Slightly more penetration than King Tiger, but King Tiger has better rate of fire. Armor protection, King Tiger. Frontal hull 180 millimeters at 50 degrees. Effective thickness over 250 millimeters. Turret front 180 millimeters. Tiger 1. Frontal hull 100 millimeters vertical. Turret front 100 millimeters. IS-2. Frontal hull 120 millimeters at 60 degrees. Effective thickness over 200 millimeters. Turret front 100 millimeters. Winner, King Tiger. Best frontal armor of any World War II tank. Mobility, King Tiger. Maximum 41 kilometers per hour on roads. 15 to 20 kilometers per hour cross-country. Tiger 1. Maximum 38 kilometers per hour. IS-2. Maximum 37 kilometers per hour. Sherman. Maximum 40 kilometers per hour. Approximately equal. All heavy tanks are slow compared to medium tanks. Operational reliability. King Tiger, 50 to 60%. Tiger 1, 50 to 60%. IS-2, 75%. Sherman, 99%. Winner. Sherman. Far superior reliability. This matters more than any other factor. Production cost and time. King Tiger, 300,000 man-hours, 300,000 Reichsmarks. Tiger 1, 300,000 man-hours, 250,000 Reichsmarks. IS-2, approximately equivalent to 150,000 man-hours, 150,000 Soviet rubles. Sherman, 10,000 man-hours, $50,000. Winner. Sherman, 30 times faster to produce than King Tiger. Combat effectiveness. This is subjective. But let's consider practical factors. In a one-on-one duel at long range, the King Tiger wins against any opponent. Its armor is impenetrable at long range. Its gun can penetrate any tank. But wars aren't one-on-one duels. In realistic combat conditions, numerical superiority matters. Allied forces can afford to lose 5 Shermans to kill 1 King Tiger. Germany cannot afford to lose 1 King Tiger. Period. The arithmetic determines outcomes, not individual tank superiority. Final comparison verdict. The King Tiger is the most powerful tank of World War II by almost any technical metric: armor, firepower, penetration. But it's not the best tank. The best tank is the one that wins wars, and wars are won by reliability, production, logistics. The Sherman wins by these metrics. The T-34 wins. The King Tiger loses. German engineers created a technological masterpiece, but they created it in the wrong context. Germany needs thousands of adequate tanks, not hundreds of perfect tanks. The King Tiger proves that perfection is the enemy of victory. Chapter 11. The Legacy. The King Tiger's service ends in May 1945, but its influence continues. Post-war tank development is shaped by lessons learned from the King Tiger, both positive and negative. Positive lessons. Heavy armor works. The King Tiger proves that thick, sloped armor can stop almost any gun. Post-war tanks adopt sloped armor universally. Soviet tanks, American tanks, British tanks, all use sloped designs. The King Tiger validates this approach. Long-range firepower matters. The King Tiger's 88mm gun can engage at extreme ranges. Post-war tank guns become increasingly powerful. 90mm, 105mm, 120mm. The trend toward bigger guns starts with tanks like the King Tiger. Negative lessons. Over-engineering is dangerous. The King Tiger is too complex, too heavy, too expensive, too slow to produce. Post-war tanks prioritize simplicity, reliability, ease of maintenance. The American M48 Patton, the Soviet T-54. Both are simpler than the King Tiger. Both are more successful. Mechanical reliability matters more than armor or firepower. A tank that breaks down is useless. Post-war tank development emphasizes reliability. Engine testing, transmission testing, durability trials. The King Tiger's transmission problems teach this lesson painfully. Surviving King Tigers. Approximately 15 King Tigers survive today. Most are in museums. The German Tank Museum at Münster has one. The Bovington Tank Museum in Britain has one. The Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia has 2. The U.S. Army Ordnance Museum has 1. A few are in private collections. Some surviving King Tigers are operational, restored to running condition. They appear in films, documentaries, historical reenactments. The sight of a King Tiger is impressive. 70 tons of steel, The 88mm gun, the thick armor. It represents an era, the final years of World War II, when Germany threw everything into creating superweapons, desperately hoping technology could reverse inevitable defeat. Chapter 12. The Final Verdict. So what's the final verdict on the King Tiger? Was it a good tank? A great tank? A failure? The answer is complex. As a combat vehicle, the King Tiger was exceptional. One-on-one, it dominated. No Allied tank could match it. The armor was impenetrable. The gun was devastating. Crews who operated King Tigers praised them when they worked. As a weapon system, the King Tiger was flawed. Mechanical unreliability, fuel consumption, complexity. These problems prevented the King Tiger from fulfilling its potential. A tank that breaks down before reaching combat is worthless, no matter how powerful. As a strategic asset, the King Tiger was irrelevant. 492 tanks cannot influence a war involving millions. Germany needed thousands of tanks. It built hundreds. This arithmetic doomed Germany, regardless of the King Tiger's technical superiority. As a symbol, the King Tiger represents Germany's final desperation. By 1944, Germany knows it's losing. The response is to build superweapons: jets, rockets, super heavy tanks. These weapons are technically impressive, but they arrive too late, in too few numbers. They cannot change the outcome. The King Tiger is the perfect tank that came too late. It's the invincible fortress that cannot move. It's the ultimate weapon that Germany cannot afford. It's the engineering triumph that becomes a strategic failure. German General Heinz Guderian wrote after the war, "The King Tiger was the finest tank Germany ever produced, and that was precisely the problem. We spent 300,000 man-hours building each King Tiger. In that same time, America built 30 Shermans. Technology does not win wars. Production wins wars. Logistics wins wars. We learned this lesson too late." American General Omar Bradley said, "The King Tiger was a formidable opponent. Our tankers feared it, but we didn't fear it strategically. Why? Because there were so few. For every King Tiger, we had 50 Shermans. 50 tanks can accomplish what one super tank cannot. Control territory. Provide sustained support. Maintain operations. The King Tiger proved that quality without quantity is insufficient." Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov offered the most direct assessment. The King Tiger was impressive, but irrelevant. By 1944, Germany had already lost the war. No tank could change this. Germany lost because Soviet and American industry outproduced German industry. The King Tiger was Germany's admission of desperation. When you cannot build enough tanks, you build better tanks. But this doesn't work. The King Tiger, Königstiger, Tiger II. The tank with 180 millimeters of frontal armor. The gun that could kill at 3 kilometers. The machine that dominated every battlefield it reached. 492 built. Perhaps 300 saw combat. Most were destroyed not by enemy action, but by mechanical failure, by fuel exhaustion, by crew abandonment. Not perfect, but powerful. Not successful, but feared. Not decisive, but legendary. This is the story of the King Tiger, the perfect tank that came too late. Thank you for watching Iron Witness. Subscribe for more untold stories of the machines that shaped history. The Assault on Berlin. April 25, 1945, 6 in the morning. Berlin, Germany, Reichstag District. Soviet tank commander Lieutenant Anatoly Rybakov sits in his IS-2 heavy tank. The tank is named for Stalin. It's his second IS-2. The first was destroyed by a German Panther 3 months ago near Warsaw. Rybakov and his crew escaped. Barely. He looks through his periscope. Berlin burns. Smoke rises from 1,000 fires. Buildings collapse. Streets are filled with rubble. German resistance is fierce, desperate. Every building is a fortress. Every street corner has a Panzerfaust team waiting. Rybakov's radio crackles. For Stalin, advance to Reichstag, support infantry, suppress enemy positions. Rybakov acknowledges. His driver, Sergeant Volkov, shifts gears. The IS-2 lurches forward. 46 tons of Soviet steel. Tracks crush rubble. The tank moves slowly, carefully. Berlin's streets are treacherous. Suddenly, movement. 300 meters ahead, a German Tiger tank emerges from behind a collapsed building. The Tiger's 88mm gun swings toward them. Rybakov shouts, "Target! Tiger! Front!" His gunner, Corporal Petrov, already sees it. The Tiger fires first. The shell hits the IS-2's frontal armor, 120mm of steel. The shell bounces off. Sparks. No penetration. The crew feels the impact. Violent, but the armor holds. Petrov centers the crosshairs. The IS-2's 122mm gun aims at the Tiger. Range, 280 meters. Point-blank range for this weapon. Fire! The IS-2 recoils. Massive. The 122mm shell crosses the distance in a fraction of a second. Hits the Tiger's frontal armor. Penetrates. The Tiger explodes. Catastrophic ammunition detonation. The turret flies 15 meters, crashes into a building. Rybakov's crew doesn't celebrate. They've seen this before. The IS-2's gun can kill any German tank. One shot. But reloading takes time. 30 seconds minimum. In urban combat, 30 seconds is eternity. Another Panzerfaust team appears, a building to the right. Rybakov rotates the turret. The IS-2's 12.7mm machine gun opens fire. The building's windows shatter. The Panzerfaust team retreats. This is the IS-2's war. Urban assault, breaking fortified positions, destroying German armor at close range. The IS-2 isn't designed for long-range tank duels on open plains. It's designed for this. Close combat, overwhelming firepower, unstoppable advance. This is the story of the IS-2, Stalin's hammer, the Soviet Union's answer to the Tiger, the tank with the most powerful gun of World War II, the machine that Soviet crews called victory's guarantee, the weapon that proved Soviet heavy tank design could match and exceed German engineering. Welcome to Iron Witness. Part 1. Origins. The Tiger Shock. Chapter 1. The KV-85 Failure. Let's go back to 1943. The Soviet Union has a problem. German Tiger tanks are appearing on the Eastern Front. The Tiger's 88mm gun can destroy Soviet tanks at ranges beyond 2,000 meters. Soviet tanks cannot respond effectively. The main Soviet heavy tank is the KV-1, 47 tons, 76mm gun, good armor. But the KV-1 has problems. It's slow. Maximum speed, 35 kilometers per hour. It's unreliable. The transmission frequently fails. And most critically, its 76mm gun cannot penetrate Tiger frontal armor at combat ranges. Soviet tank losses in 1943 are catastrophic, not just from Tigers. German Panthers, Panzer IVs, and anti-tank guns destroy thousands of Soviet tanks. Soviet commanders send desperate reports to Moscow. We need a heavy tank that can fight Tigers. We need it immediately. Soviet leader Joseph Stalin personally intervenes. He orders the Kirov factory in Chelyabinsk to develop an improved heavy tank. The requirements are simple: heavier armor than the KV-1, a more powerful gun, better mobility. The design team, led by Chief Engineer Nikolai Dukov, proposes the KV-85. The name indicates the new gun, 85mm D5T. This gun is more powerful than the KV-1's 76mm. It can penetrate 100 millimeters of armor at 1,000 meters. Better, but still inadequate against the Tiger's frontal armor. The KV-85 enters production in September 1943. By December, over 130 are built. They enter combat immediately, and the results are disappointing. Soviet tank commander Major Ivan Pavlov later wrote, "The KV-85 was better than the KV-1, but against Tigers it was still insufficient. We could kill Tigers from the side or rear, but frontal engagements at long range were suicide. The Tiger's gun could penetrate us. Our gun bounced off the Tiger." Stalin is furious. He summons the design team to Moscow. December 1943. The meeting is tense. Stalin demands answers. Why can't our heavy tank kill German heavy tanks? The Tiger weighs 56 tons. We can build a tank that size. Why haven't you? Dukov explains the technical challenges. Heavier armor means more weight. More weight requires a more powerful engine. A more powerful engine requires better transmissions. And most importantly, they need a bigger gun. Much bigger. Stalin listens, then makes a decision. Build a new heavy tank. I want frontal armor that can withstand Tiger shells. I want a gun that can destroy Tigers at any range. I don't care about the cost. I don't care about production complexity. Build it. Name it after me. IS. Joseph Stalin. The IS program begins. Chapter 2. The 122mm decision. The critical question: what gun should the IS tank use? Soviet engineers consider several options. The 85mm D5T, already in production, proven, but inadequate against Tigers. The 100mm D10T, more powerful, can penetrate Tigers frontally at medium ranges, but Soviet artillery doesn't use 100mm shells. No existing ammunition production. The 122mm A-19 core gun. This is an artillery piece, designed for infantry support, but it's powerful, extremely powerful. The 122mm shell weighs 25 kilograms. For comparison, the Tiger's 88mm shell weighs 10 kilograms. The German Panther's 75mm shell weighs 6.8 kilograms. The Soviet 122mm shell is massive. The problem? Can you mount a 122mm artillery gun in a tank turret? Soviet engineers study the question. The A-19 gun is huge. Long barrel, heavy recoil. The turret must be large. The turret ring must be wide. The recoil mechanism must be redesigned. The project seems impossible. But Dukov's team finds a solution. They modify the A-19, shorten the barrel slightly, improve the recoil system, design a larger turret, widen the turret ring. By March 1944, they have a working prototype. The gun is designated D25T, tank version of the A-19. It fires the same 122mm ammunition, but it's adapted for tank use. The performance is extraordinary. At 1,000 meters, the D25T can penetrate 160 millimeters of armor. The Tiger's frontal armor is 100 millimeters. The D25T can penetrate it easily. At 2,000 meters, it can penetrate 120 millimeters. Still enough to kill a Tiger, but there's a significant problem: rate of fire. The D25T is slow to reload. The shell weighs 25 kilograms. The loader must manually lift it from the ammunition rack, insert it into the breech, close the breech. The gunner aims, fires. The entire process takes approximately 30 seconds. Compare this to the Tiger's 88mm gun. Rate of fire, 6 to 8 rounds per minute. Approximately 8 to 10 seconds per shot. The IS tank will fire 1 shot for every 3 to 4 Tiger shots. This is a critical disadvantage in a tank duel. But Soviet doctrine accepts this trade-off. The IS isn't designed for long-range duels. It's designed for breakthrough operations, assault missions, destroying fortified positions. In these roles, overwhelming firepower per shot matters more than rate of fire. Stalin approves the 122mm gun. The IS heavy tank program proceeds. Chapter 3. The IS-2 design. The IS-2 is finalized in October 1944. Let me describe what Soviet engineers created. Weight, 46 tons, heavier than the T-34, but lighter than the Tiger at 56 tons. This weight is achievable for Soviet factories. Armor, frontal hull, 120mm at 60 degrees. This slope effectively increases the armor to over 200mm equivalent, impenetrable to most German guns at combat ranges. Turret front, 100mm, thick enough to withstand Tiger shots at medium to long range. Side armor, 90mm, vulnerable to flanking shots, but adequate for frontal assaults. Gun, 122mm D25T, barrel length, 6.2 meters. Muzzle velocity, 780 meters per second. Penetration at 1,000 meters, 160 millimeters. This gun can kill any German tank from any angle. 1 shot, 1 kill. Engine, W2IS diesel engine, 520 horsepower. The same family as the T-34 engine. Reliable, proven, fuel efficient. Less likely to catch fire than gasoline engines. Suspension, torsion bar suspension, similar to German tanks. Better ride quality than the old KV series. Better cross-country performance. Speed, maximum 37 kilometers per hour on roads, 20 kilometers per hour cross-country. Slower than the T-34, but faster than the old KV tanks. Adequate for breakthrough operations. Range, 150 kilometers on roads, limited by fuel capacity, but Soviet logistics can provide fuel. Crew, 4 men. Commander, gunner, loader, driver. No bow machine gunner like German or American tanks. This saves space and weight. Ammunition capacity, 28 rounds, limited by the size of 122mm shells. Each shell is large, takes up significant space, compared to Tigers carrying 92 rounds of 88mm. But Soviet doctrine emphasizes quality over quantity of shots. Production begins at the Kirov factory in October 1944. By December, over 100 IS-2s are built. By January 1945, production accelerates, 300 per month. By May 1945, 3,515 IS-2s have been produced. This production rate is slower than T-34 production, but faster than German Tiger production. And the IS-2 is more reliable than the Tiger. Operational readiness, approximately 75%, not as high as T-34's 95%, but much better than Tiger's 50 to 60%. The IS-2 enters combat in January 1945, and it proves itself immediately. Part 2. Combat. The Iron Fist. Chapter 4. Operation Vistula Oder. January 12, 1945. The Vistula Oder Offensive. The Soviet Union launches a massive assault from Poland toward Germany. Over 2.2 million Soviet soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 7,000 aircraft. The objective: cross the Vistula River, break through German defenses, Advance to the Oder River. Prepare for the final assault on Berlin. IS-2 tanks spearhead the attack. Their role: break through fortified German positions, destroy German counterattacking armor, clear paths for T-34 medium tanks and infantry. The first major engagement occurs near Warsaw. German forces have fortified the city's outskirts. Concrete bunkers, anti-tank ditches, minefields, and dozens of Panthers and Tigers in hull-down positions. Soviet IS-2 commander Lieutenant Dmitry Oskin leads a platoon of 3 IS-2s. His orders: assault the German defensive line, destroy enemy armor, support infantry advance. Oskin's platoon advances. German anti-tank guns open fire. 75mm PaK-40 guns, effective against most Soviet tanks. But the IS-2's frontal armor is too thick. Shells bounce off. Oskin's platoon continues advancing, unstoppable. Then, German Tigers appear. 3 Tigers emerge from concealed positions. Range 1,200 meters. The Tigers fire. 3 shells hit Oskin's lead IS-2. All 3 bounce off the sloped frontal armor. The IS-2's armor holds. Oskin orders return fire. His gunner aims at the nearest Tiger. Range 1,100 meters. The IS-2 fires. The 122mm shell hits the Tiger's frontal armor. Penetrates. The Tiger explodes. Catastrophic kill. Second IS-2 engages the second Tiger. Range 1,000 meters. Fires. Penetrates. Another Tiger destroyed. The third Tiger attempts to retreat. Oskin's platoon pursues. Range closes to 800 meters. Third IS-2 fires. The shell hits the Tiger's side armor, penetrates easily. Third Tiger destroyed. 3 Tigers eliminated in under 3 minutes. 0 Soviet losses. This engagement demonstrates the IS-2's primary advantage: overwhelming firepower. At ranges where German guns can barely damage the IS-2 can kill any German tank with 1 shot. Oskin's actions are reported to Stalin personally. Oskin receives the Hero of the Soviet Union medal. His crew receives promotions. The IS-2 gains a reputation among Soviet forces: the Tiger Killer. But not every engagement goes this well. Chapter 5. The Rate of Fire Problem. January 28, 1945, near Lodz, Poland. Soviet forces encounter a German counterattack. Approximately 50 German tanks. Mix of Panthers, Panzer IVs, and a few King Tigers. Soviet tank commander Captain Nikolai Urshov commands a company of 5 IS-2s. His orders: hold the line, prevent German breakthrough. The battle begins at dawn. German tanks advance in a coordinated assault. Urshov's IS-2s open fire at long range, 1,500 meters. The first volley destroys 2 Panthers, but reloading takes 30 seconds. During this time, German tanks fire multiple shots. A Panther shell hits Urshov's IS-2. The shot hits the turret at an angle, doesn't penetrate, but the impact damages the turret traverse mechanism. Urshov's turret rotates slowly now, manually. This is a critical problem. More German tanks approach. Urshov's IS-2 fires again, destroys a Panzer IV, but reload takes 35 seconds this time. The loader is exhausted. 25-kilogram shells are heavy. Lifting them repeatedly in combat is physically demanding. A King Tiger appears. Range 1,000 meters. The King Tiger fires. Hits Urshov's IS-2 again. This shot hits the lower frontal plate, a weak point. The shell penetrates. Urshov's driver is killed instantly. The IS-2 is immobilized. Urshov and his remaining crew bail out. They watch as the King Tiger fires again. This shot hits the IS-2's ammunition rack. The tank explodes. Total loss. This engagement illustrates the IS-2's critical weakness: rate of fire. In a sustained battle against multiple German tanks, the slow reload becomes a fatal liability. German tanks can fire 3 to 4 times for every IS-2 shot. Even with superior armor and firepower, the IS-2 can be overwhelmed by sheer volume of enemy fire. Soviet commanders recognize this problem. They develop new tactics. IS-2s operate in pairs or platoons. One tank fires, the others cover during reload. Infantry support is mandatory. Infantry suppresses German anti-tank teams with rifles and machine guns while IS-2s engage armored targets. This combined arms approach compensates for the rate of fire problem. And it works. Chapter 6. The Battle of Seelow Heights. April 16th to April 19th, 1945. The Battle of Seelow Heights, the final major defensive line before Berlin. German forces have fortified this position heavily. 3 defensive lines, thousands of trenches, hundreds of bunkers, and approximately 300 German tanks, Panthers, King Tigers, Jagdpanthers. Soviet forces commit over 3,000 tanks to this assault, including approximately 200 IS-2s. The Soviet plan: massive artillery bombardment, then armored assault. Break through all 3 defensive lines in 48 hours. IS-2 commander Major Alexei Lebedev commands a battalion of 12 IS-2s. His battalion is assigned to the 2nd Assault Wave. Their mission: exploit breakthroughs created by T-34s, destroy German counterattacks, clear paths to Berlin. April 16th, 4 in the morning. Soviet artillery opens fire. Over 9,000 guns and rocket launchers. The barrage lasts 30 minutes. The earth shakes. German positions disappear under explosions. 5 in the morning. The assault begins. T-34s advance. Infantry follows. German resistance is fierce despite the bombardment. Anti-tank guns open fire. German artillery responds. The first wave suffers heavy casualties. 7 in the morning. Lebedev's IS-2 battalion enters the battle. They advance through the first defensive line. Destroyed by the artillery bombardment. Minimal resistance. The battalion continues to the 2nd line. Suddenly, German armor appears, a company of Panthers, approximately 12 tanks, positioned in hull-down positions behind earth berms, only their turrets visible. Perfect ambush position. The Panthers fire. 6 T-34s are destroyed immediately. Lebedev's IS-2s return fire. Range, 900 meters. The first IS-2 fires, hits a Panther. The Panther's turret armor holds, no penetration. The gunner adjusts aim, fires again. This shot hits the Panther's hull, penetrates. The Panther burns. The battle intensifies. Panthers focus fire on the IS-2s. Multiple hits on Lebedev's tank. None penetrate the frontal armor. But the impacts are violent. One hit damages the radio. Communication with other IS-2s is lost. Lebedev orders his battalion to close range. The IS-2s advance aggressively. 600 meters. 500 meters. At this range, the 122mm gun is devastating. Every shot penetrates. Panthers are destroyed one by one, but German reinforcements arrive. 4 King Tigers. These are Germany's heaviest production tanks. 70 tons. 180mm frontal armor. The 88mm L/71 gun, more powerful than the Tiger I's gun. A King Tiger fires at Lebedev's IS-2. Range, 700 meters. The shell hits directly on the frontal armor. The armor cracks, but holds. No penetration. Lebedev's crew is stunned by the impact. The driver loses consciousness briefly. The tank stops. Lebedev's gunner recovers first, aims at the King Tiger, fires. The 122mm shell hits the King Tiger's frontal armor. This is one of the few guns that can penetrate a King Tiger frontally. The shell goes through. The King Tiger explodes. The battle continues for 3 hours. By noon, all German Panthers and King Tigers in this sector are destroyed. Soviet losses: 18 T-34s, 3 IS-2s. German losses: 12 Panthers, 4 King Tigers, 8 Panzer IVs. The IS-2 proves its value. It can penetrate any German tank. It can withstand hits from any German gun except at close range or from the heaviest weapons. It's the Soviet Union's ultimate tank destroyer. But the cost is high. IS-2 crews suffer approximately 15% casualties at Zelo Heights. The tank is powerful, but not invincible. By April 19th, Soviet forces break through all 3 defensive lines. The road to Berlin is open. And IS-2s will lead the assault on the German capital. Part 3. Berlin, the final battle. Chapter 7. Urban Assault. April 21st to May 2nd, 1945. The Battle of Berlin. Over 2.5 million Soviet soldiers, 6,000 tanks. The objective? Capture Berlin. End the war in Europe. IS-2s are assigned to assault groups. These are combined arms formations. Each group includes IS-2 heavy tanks, T-34 medium tanks, infantry, engineers, and artillery. The mission: advance street by street, building by building, destroy German resistance. Urban combat is the IS-2's specialty. The 122mm gun is devastating against buildings. One shell can collapse a building's corner, create breaches for infantry, suppress German positions. Soviet IS-2 commander Lieutenant Viktor Smirnov participates in the assault on the Reichstag. His IS-2 is named for Moscow. It's his first heavy tank. He transferred from a T-34 crew 2 months ago. April 25th, morning. Smirnov's assault group advances toward the Reichstag. German resistance is fanatical. Every building has defenders. Panzerfaust teams ambush Soviet armor from windows and basements. Smirnov's IS-2 advances slowly. The driver watches for rubble that might immobilize the tank. The turret rotates constantly, scanning for threats. The gunner's finger rests on the trigger. A German Jagdpanther tank destroyer appears, hidden in a side street. Range: 200 meters. The Jagdpanther fires first. Its 128mm gun hits Smirnov's IS-2 on the turret side. The shell penetrates. The loader is killed instantly. The gunner is wounded. Smirnov takes over the gun manually. He aims at the Jagdpanther. The range is too close for the Jagdpanther to retreat. Smirnov fires. The 122mm shell hits the Jagdpanther's superstructure, penetrates. The Jagdpanther explodes. Smirnov's IS-2 is damaged. The turret rotates, but slowly. The loader is dead. Smirnov must load the gun himself while also commanding the tank. This is nearly impossible. He radios for a replacement tank. But before the replacement arrives, a Panzerfaust team attacks. 2 German soldiers emerge from a basement. Range: 30 meters. They fire Panzerfausts simultaneously. Both hit the IS-2's side armor. Side armor is only 90 millimeters. Panzerfausts can penetrate this. Both rockets penetrate. The ammunition explodes. Smirnov and his driver escape through the top hatches. The IS-2 burns. This is urban warfare's brutal reality. Even the IS-2, with its massive armor and powerful gun, is vulnerable in cities. Short ranges negate armor advantages. Ambushes are everywhere. Visibility is limited. Soviet IS-2 losses in Berlin are significant. approximately 40 IS-2s destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Most losses are from Panzerfausts, not enemy tanks. German armor is scarce by April 1945, but German infantry anti-tank weapons are plentiful. Despite losses, the IS-2s fulfill their mission. They break through German defenses, destroy fortified positions, suppress counterattacks. By May 2nd, Berlin falls. The war in Europe ends. The IS-2 participates in the victory. Soviet propaganda films show IS-2s parading through Berlin's streets. Stalin personally congratulates IS-2 crews. The tank becomes a symbol of Soviet victory. Chapter 8. Final Statistics. Let's examine the IS-2's combat record, because the numbers tell an important story. Production: 3,854 IS-2s built from October 1944 to May 1945. 7 months of production. Compared to Tiger I, 1,347 built over 2 years. The IS-2's production rate is significantly higher. Combat deployment. Approximately 800 IS-2s participated in major battles from January to May 1945. Vistula-Oder Offensive, Battle of Zilo Heights, Battle of Berlin. Others served in secondary sectors or remained in reserve. Combat effectiveness. IS-2 kill-to-loss ratio against German armor is approximately 2-to-1. For every IS-2 destroyed, approximately 2 German tanks were eliminated. Compare this to the Tiger's ratio of approximately 5-to-1. The IS-2 is less effective one-on-one, but the context matters. By early 1945, most German tank crews are poorly trained. Germany's experienced tankers are dead or captured. Replacement crews have minimal training, sometimes only a few weeks. They don't know how to maximize their tanks' advantages. Soviet tank crews, conversely, have years of combat experience. They know their tanks' limitations. They use combined arms tactics effectively. This experience gap compensates for technical disadvantages. Crew survival rate. IS-2 crew casualties are approximately 12% killed in action, 20% wounded. Total casualty rate, 32%. This is lower than T-34 crew casualties, approximately 40%, but higher than Tiger crew casualties, approximately 25%, though this is contested. The IS-2's good crew survivability comes from thick armor and good escape hatches. When an IS-2 is penetrated, the crew usually has time to escape. The ammunition is well protected. Catastrophic explosions are less common than in T-34s. Operational reliability. IS-2 operational readiness averages 75%. Out of 100 IS-2s, 75 are mission ready at any time. This is lower than T-34, 95%, but much higher than Tiger, 50 to 60%, or Panther, 60 to 70%. The IS-2 uses the proven V2 diesel engine family. Reliable. The transmission is strengthened compared to KV tanks, fewer breakdowns. Maintenance is simpler than German heavy tanks. Post-war service. The IS-2 remains in Soviet service until 1959, 15 years after introduction. It participates in several post-war conflicts, most notably the Korean War, though in limited numbers. The IS-2 proves that Soviet heavy tank design is viable. It can match German engineering. It can be produced in reasonable quantities. It can operate reliably in combat. This sets the foundation for future Soviet heavy tanks, the IS-3, the IS-4, eventually the T-10. Chapter 9. IS-2 versus Tiger. The comparison. Let's directly compare the IS-2 and the Tiger I, because this comparison reveals important truths about tank design philosophy. Gun power. IS-2, 122 mm, penetration at 1,000 meters, 160 mm. Tiger, 88 mm, penetration at 1,000 meters, 120 millimeters. Winner, IS-2. The Soviet gun is more powerful. Rate of fire, IS-2, 2 to 3 rounds per minute. Tiger, 6 to 8 rounds per minute. Winner, Tiger. The German gun fires more than twice as fast. Armor protection, IS-2, 120 millimeters frontal hull at 60 degrees. Effective, over 200 millimeters. Frontal turret, 100 millimeters. Tiger, 100 millimeters frontal hull vertical, 100 millimeters frontal turret. Winner, IS-2. The sloped Soviet armor is more effective. Mobility, IS-2, 37 kilometers per hour. Tiger, 38 kilometers per hour. Approximately equal. Both are slow compared to medium tanks. Operational reliability, IS-2, 75%. Tiger, 50 to 60%. Winner, IS-2, more reliable. Production cost, IS-2, approximately equivalent to 150,000 Soviet rubles. Tiger, approximately equivalent to 250,000 Soviet rubles, adjusted for currency differences. Winner, IS-2, cheaper to produce. Crew comfort, Tiger, excellent, spacious interior, good visibility, comfortable seats. IS-2, adequate, less spacious than Tiger, but better than T-34. Winner, Tiger. Final verdict? The IS-2 and Tiger are approximately equal in one-on-one combat. The IS-2 has superior armor and gun power. The Tiger has superior rate of fire and crew ergonomics. In practice, victory depends on crew skill, tactical situation, and luck. But wars aren't decided by one-on-one tank duels. They're decided by production, logistics, and operational factors. The IS-2 can be produced faster. It's more reliable. It's cheaper. These advantages matter more than slight technical superiority in specific areas. Soviet doctrine doesn't require the IS-2 to win tank duels. It requires the IS-2 to break through fortified positions, destroy enemy strongpoints, support infantry advances. In these roles, the IS-2 excels. German doctrine expects the Tiger to dominate battlefields, destroy enemy armor at long range, win through technical superiority. But by 1945, Germany cannot produce enough Tigers, cannot supply them adequately, cannot train enough skilled crews. The doctrine fails not because the Tiger is inadequate, but because Germany's strategic situation is hopeless. The IS-2 succeeds because Soviet strategy is sound. Produce capable heavy tanks in reasonable numbers. Use them as breakthrough weapons, not general-purpose armor. Support them with combined arms. Accept that they won't win every engagement. Focus on operational and strategic victory. This philosophy wins wars. Part 4. Legacy. Chapter 10. Cold War Service. The IS-2's service doesn't end in 1945. The tank continues serving the Soviet Union throughout the late 1940s and 50s. Korean War, 1950 to 1953. Small numbers of IS-2s are transferred to North Korea and China. They participate in several battles against American M26 Pershing and M46 Patton tanks. The results are mixed. The IS-2's 122mm gun can penetrate American tanks easily. But American tanks have better fire control systems, better optics, better crew training. Several IS-2s are destroyed by American armor and aircraft. Eastern European deployments. IS-2s are stationed in East Germany, Poland, and Hungary throughout the 1950s. They serve as deterrents against NATO. But by the mid-50s, the IS-2 is obsolete. Newer Soviet heavy tanks, IS-3, T-10, are superior. 1956 Hungarian Revolution. Some IS-2s participate in suppressing the Hungarian uprising. Urban combat against lightly armed resistance fighters. The IS-2's heavy armor is effective against small arms and improvised weapons. Retirement. By 1959, most IS-2s are retired from frontline service. Some are converted to training vehicles. Others are scrapped. A few are preserved in museums. Surviving examples. Today, approximately 20 IS-2s survive worldwide. Most are in Russian museums. The Kubinka Tank Museum has several examples. One is in running condition. The IS-2 influenced post-war Soviet tank design significantly. The lessons learned from the IS-2 program shaped the development of post-war heavy tanks. The IS-3 improved on the IS-2's sloped armor concept. The T-10 incorporated better fire control and ergonomics. Even Soviet main battle tanks like the T-54 and T-62 owe debts to the IS-2. The emphasis on sloped armor, powerful guns, diesel engines, simple, reliable mechanical systems. These design principles originated with the T-34 and were refined in the IS-2. Chapter 11. The Verdict. So, what's the final verdict on the IS-2? As a heavy tank, the IS-2 was successful. It achieved its primary mission: destroy German heavy tanks, break through fortified positions, support breakthrough operations. It performed these roles effectively. As a weapon system, the IS-2 had significant flaws: slow rate of fire, limited ammunition capacity, mediocre crew ergonomics. These flaws prevented it from being a perfect tank, but perfection was never the goal. Adequacy was the goal, and the IS-2 was adequate. As a symbol, the IS-2 represented Soviet industrial recovery. In 1941, the Soviet Union lost vast industrial capacity to German invasion. By 1944, Soviet industry could produce sophisticated heavy tanks in significant quantities. The IS-2 proved Soviet resilience. As a response to the Tiger, the IS-2 succeeded. It matched the Tiger in combat capability, exceeded it in reliability and production. The IS-2 demonstrated that Soviet tank design could compete with German engineering. This was psychologically important for Soviet forces and leadership. The IS-2 wasn't the best tank of World War II. That distinction probably belongs to the German Panther, when it worked, or the Soviet T-34 for overall impact. But the IS-2 was the best Soviet heavy tank of the war. It fulfilled its mission. It contributed to victory. It influenced post-war tank development. Soviet General Georgy Zhukov said after the war, "The IS-2 gave our forces confidence. When soldiers saw IS-2s advancing, they knew we could break any German defense." The psychological impact was as important as the technical capability. The IS-2, Stalin's hammer, the Tiger killer, the tank with the biggest gun of World War II. 3,854 built, served in the final battles of the European War, participated in the victory over Nazi Germany. Not perfect, but effective. Not invincible, but formidable. Not the most produced, but produced when it mattered most. This is the story of the IS-2. Thank you for watching Iron Witness. Subscribe for more untold stories of the machines that shaped history.